Hey there, friends. How's it going? My name's Papa, and today we're playing Higurashi Ray. Specifically, we're only doing one of the 3 chapters in this. The other 2 are basically just fan service, and I think we've got better things to play on stream. Before we get into this game has some trigger warnings, including, but not limited to, murder, death, torture, child abuse, I feel like there's one more in there. You can find all of them down below in the trigger warning section. Also, this obviously has spoilers to any of the previous Higurashi that we've played, which is chapters 1 through 8. Which corresponds to seasons 1 and 2 of the anime. A reminder that the new ones, Go and Sotsu, are not remakes, they're continuations, which correspond to seasons 5 and 6. Where this one is going to take place is the middle of season 3, if you're watching the anime. It's episodes 2, 3, and 4. Episodes 1 and 1, I think, is... both of them are fan servicey episodes. 1, I think, is part of the console arcs if you download it for the Zero Sum expansion mod for chapter 4, and you get the 18 other side stories or non-canonical endings. That's there, and then the other one is part of one of the other stories here we're not doing, and then I think one of the other stories here ends up in season 4, which is even more fan servicey, minus 1 episode. I have many better things to play on Steam, Samus, and also don't think I didn't see. How do I replay your thing? Replay.
I'm back.
There. Don't think I didn't see that. You stop that. But yes, we do have many other things to play on Steam. We've still got the second half of the Trails from Zero, which duology, Trails to Azure, as well as, once we've done that, Cold Steel 3 and 4 are there. We've got some other ones. Again, it's all in the Discord if you want to vote on it. If people are also interested in, I guess two things. One, if you're interested in more Paper Mario randomizers, the season is now halfway through. There was an impromptu race on, I think it was Monday, that I saw. They've got a new system where you have to do much less, so it makes the races faster. There was 3 competitors. I think 2 of them were at about an hour and a half mark. The other one was an hour 50. If people want to see me try to do that and see how well I would compare to an actual race, we can try that. Or we can try the fully randomized nonsense version. They've got some horrible randomizer stuff there. And I'm watching Archipelago. It's in development for Archipelago. It's in beta, so you can, in theory, run Archipelago on Paper Mario Randomizer, but it's not in full release just yet. What else? Oh, and then in the About area on Twitch, there's a section that has games I'm playing. Can't remember what it's called. It's Gamer 1 or something. You go there, you can now also vote on the upcoming games. That's the same as what's in the Discord and my Steam library. So if you want to vote there as well, that'll also help me know what to play. Archipelago with Minecraft. I'm not sure how that would work. So we need people to play Minecraft who want to be part of an Archipelago, which would not be me. Yeah. I think you saw some of Droth's the other day, and there was a Final Fantasy one. There was some RTS one. I didn't actually catch what game that was. Ocarina of Time, Link to the Past, and what was the other one? Oh, Link's Awakening. Regular, I think, maybe DX? Not sure. But yeah. There's a couple in there I've seen that I'm like, I could potentially do that. I would need a full day probably to do that, so it'd have to be planned way in advance, but I'm down if people want to set up an archipelago. I have seen some people do like extreme async archipelagos. I guess that means like you play whenever you want and it just gets sent in, and then you can say like, oh, I've sent whatever, the Hookshot to Ocarina of Time and Morph Ball to Super Metroid and whatever. Kind of curious how that works. Might be something easier than trying to get like 3 or 4 people on for like a 7-hour thing. But yeah, so with that, we're going to dive into Higurashi Ray. This one is focused around Rika. I guess can you see? Oh, there's my mouse cursor. I had to click on it. You couldn't tell from here. And as usual, we're using the 07th expansion mod for its better graphics and audio. So like I said, there's 3 here. We're only doing one of them. We're doing the first one. The other, what's this one? This one is, there's like a pair of gems, and the 2 people that are holding it fall in love, and I think Rena ends up eating one by accident, and so everyone else is fighting over the other gem. It's fan service nonsense. This one is just a horrible scenario of Keiichi after losing another club event with all the other male figures having daydreams that should probably put them in prison. I'm not going to expand on that anymore. But we're going to do this one, which is, again, this is post all the other ones. This is Rika and friends have finally reached the summer after June 1983. But her tale's not over yet. But we're going to finish it now. And it's pretty short. It's probably a 1, maybe 2 stream at most. It ends up being 3 episodes in the anime. Bread rained down from the heavens. Some lamented it was not meat. Meat rained down from the heavens. Some lamented that they preferred bread. God descended down from the heavens. Until I know what will make you all happy, water shall rain down. Cicada's chorus has been growing increasingly lively. Strange weather during that never-ending June. It's been hot enough to make us feel like summer had come early. I saw what you did there, Samus. Fair. Even so, it was still only June. Once we got closer to summer in July, the season graced us with even more summery weather. 99% of the time, it's completely by accident. I'm not looking. I just hear the either the thing go like, hydration low, or water low, or whatever it is. Or you saying like, oh, I need more liquids in this line. That's it. And yeah, the Sundays, I could potentially do that. I'm often at the gym in the mornings. That's harder for me to set up. Man, my weekends have been absolutely blasted this past month, and will be probably for the rest of May and June. Summer's less busy. Oh look, day to fulfill my dream. We all went to play at the swimming pool. The dream might have seemed humble at first. I didn't have to look back on the 100 years journey it took to achieve it anymore. Still, I decided I shouldn't forget about it. Many people, this was a perfectly ordinary day, but for me it had taken so many years of wandering just to get here that it made me feel faint. Remembering it made this seemingly average, regular life fill me with such profound happiness. Yeah, I looked at it. There's a few I could do, like maybe some of the Pokemon ones. But even then, I'm like, can I beat Pokemon in under 7 hours? I don't know if I could. I'm also not even sure what the randomized things for Pokemon are. Is it like badges? Is it like I buy a potion in a store? Is it each like HM, TM, key item? Key items, I guess, makes sense. And maybe some of the Zelda ones. Maybe. And some of the Mario ones. That's probably my limit. Most of those, I'm like, can I beat this in a sub... I don't even know if I can beat most of those in sub 10 hours. Paper Mario I can beat in sub 10 hours, I think. I have to look at stream stats. I think I beat it in sub 10 hours. I mean, there you go, Links and Go mode already. Yeah. I mean, I guess I don't even need my key up. Just get me my 8 badges. That's all I need to like make it to the end. And I guess whatever HMs, whatever that is, strength, serve, waterfall.
I'm back.
Boy, stop that. And I was replying to messages while I was in the bathroom while stream was on the starting screen. Thank you very much. How are you doing? Gosh. So everything they're talking about right now is the side story. One of the side stories that I think ends up being episode 1 of season 3 of the anime, but it's in the chapter 4 side arcs. Long and short of it, they're gonna go to the pool. Keiichi sleeps through his alarm, rushes down there, realizes he forgot his swim trunks. Mion's uncle at the weird game store that also sells like dolls and pool stuff, he has this pair of swim trunks, which he says if you write your name in it and wear it for, I think it's 3 hours, you'll, like, everyone will fall in love with you. And he warns him, like, during those 3 hours, everyone's gonna be jealous of you until it takes effect. So Keiichi's like, fine, I need the swim trunks, whatever, I'll do it. If it happens, cool. If it doesn't, whatever. After he does this and goes there, the guy realizes, crap, you're not supposed to put your own name in it. You're supposed to put the name of the person you want to fall in love with you in it. So if he puts his own name, he's just going to fall in love with himself. Be a massive narcissist. So he calls Mion to be like, yo, here's the sitch. I messed up. And of course, they try to talk to Keiichi about it. Keiichi's like, nah, he told me you're going to be jelly and come after my swim trunks. So it ends up being like a whole war in the swimming pool with him trying to keep the swim trunks, and eventually, after they bring in like tanks and stuff, they get them off him. It's weird. But that's what they're referencing here. It's actually weird that they're referencing this when it's not part of the pack of games in Ray. It's actually interesting. Oh yeah, so they bring him a bathing suit that's like a white flotation ring, and then where your manhood goes is just a giant inflatable swan head, and that's what he has to wear instead. Again, there's a reason why I'm not doing any of these nonsense stories on stream. I did play through that one off stream. I played through all the console ones, except for there's 2 where one's like a remake of it, and I picked the one that people said made more sense. But that was like a solid 9 months of like playing Higurashi off stream whenever I played, essentially. And I'll probably play these 2 side stories here off stream, but not playing them on stream.
何も予定してなかったらあんな恥ずかしい白鳥のパンツをわざわざ持ってくるわけねえだろ。何か口実をつけて俺に履かせようと企んでいたに違いね
え。でもとっても楽しい一日だったからレナは大満足だったかなそうですわね。その点につきましては同感でございましたよ。
Sadako smiled at Link, looking for my agreement. So I sent her back just as brilliant a smile, expressing how much fun all the romping about today had been. Yeah, cover it. I'm not a Sonata Arctica person, so I can't say whether or not, but that's, that theme's pretty common. So we all reminisced on our romp at the pool today, got on our bikes and started on our way home. Mizawa didn't have any pools, so we'd gone to the public pool in Okonomiya. There's an elevation difference between the 2 communities, and going downhill had been very pleasant. We had a long trip upward on our way back. For Hinamizawa children at the zenith of their energy, it wasn't that much of a chore. We naturally fell silent as we quietly pedaled up the hill. Seeing everyone so silent made me want to screw things up somehow. Messing with Sadako at times like this was so much fun for me that it could be called the very purpose of my existence. I pedaled harder, caught up Sadako's bike as she pedaled in silence, and gave her a nudge on the shoulder.
Rika?
You're pretending to be mean to Sadako. What do you mean pretending? You just were mean. I sped up. Or she sped up too and chased after me. Sadako struggled to somehow nudge me back, but I was no slouch either. Her speeds naturally increased, and it quickly passed the others in the group. This is a public road, and cars sometimes came and went. I lived here a long time, so not many cars came around at this hour. When Sadako said that, I thought she was just trying to distract me. Car horn. When I heard it, I realized Sadako's warning wasn't a trick. It was so sudden that I was overtaken with surprise. When I looked in front of me, the car was right there. I panicked and violently swung my handlebars. That's no bike I've ever heard. Ugh. The motion was more than aggressive and sudden enough to throw me off balance. My body lurched forward. I realized I was flying through the air. My nose caught the whiff of asphalt, telling me I was a moment away from being hurt. I heard Sadako shriek. Now, the sensation I was experiencing was so unreal, I only could say I thought I heard her. I couldn't even figure out if the sight of the car coming towards me as I hurtled through the air was real. But the absence of reality probably only lasted about 1 second. I wasn't even given the time to say oops. Boom, titles drop. I heard the cries of the Higurashi in the distance. Those cries dwelt such cool tenderness that I wanted to listen forever. Eventually, the silence was broken. The sound of many footsteps approached, pulling my mind back to reality. Suddenly, the cries of the Higurashi were gone. Cries filling the room were that of the cicadas. I thought I'd been hearing Higurashi this whole time. Was that a dream? I was in a bed. Didn't recognize the ceiling. Where was I? The room was small, an office desk and shelves full of medicine. I recognized the smell of that medicine, the voices of the children mixing with the cicadas' cries. I knew right away. I was at school. I was in bed at the nurse's office. The door opened and Chie appeared. Behind her was Sadako and... Huh? My mind went blank. It's the face of someone who couldn't have been there.
フルデさん。よかった。本当に心配しましたよ。もうすぐ診療所の先生が来てくれますからね。まだ横になっていてください。
よかった。本当に心配したよ。
My mind was still blank. Dazed, I kept staring at his face as he spoke words of concern. This person could not possibly be at school in 1983.
サトシ。
大丈夫？まだ調子良くないみたいだね。
先生が来てくれるまで横になっていなさい。
So for those who need a reminder of what happens to Satoshi and why he can't be here, at the end of, I think it's the 7th game, we find that he's in a medically induced coma in the basement of the clinic. Because he has terminal levels of Hinamizawa syndrome. So that's why he can't be out yet, because they haven't found a cure for that yet.
それより、北条聡子さん、どこに隠れました？
Jay raised her voice and turned back towards the hallway before Sadako poked her face out, looking as though she was sulking.
私そんなに強く投げてないもん。フルデさんが大げさなだけだもん。
そんな謝り方はありません。ちゃんとフルデさんに謝りなさい。
Sensed something a little strange about Sadako's tone and mood. In any case, judging by the situation, Sadako had done something to me. As a result, I've been carried to the nurse's office. That's how it looked to me. But didn't I pass out after falling off my bike on the way home from Okonomi with everyone?
聡子さん。
Jay called Sadako in a firm voice. Jay called Sadako Sadako-san before Satoshi went missing. The only time there were two people named Hojo was when Sadako and Satoshi were both here together. In other words, before June 1982. Then, was this past? They're repeating everything again? Felt a chill start to crawl through me. Gone through all that hardship to get past June of 1983, and now the world had rewound to the past again? Dead end of June 1983 that I challenged for over 100 years and finally broke through? I have to defeat it again? I certainly learned many things and defeated my fate with a certain willpower, but it's also saved by a lot of luck. No proof I can challenge June 1983 again and defeat it like I did last time. Sam's feels refreshed when their godfather sends a tweet with the caption. Gosh. I mean, Twitter might allow that now. Which meant I was probably hit by that car in the bike accident and killed. And just before dying, I rejected death and rewound the world. With that unrealistic memory cut off, it was definitely similar to when I rewound the world previously. Then would I undertake a terribly long journey again? That can't be. The idea was infinitely terrifying. As it dawned on me, I felt as though my vision was growing distant. I still hadn't fully understood just how terrifying this was just yet.
ほら、聡子、謝らないとダメだよ。
フルデさん、後ろからボールをぶつけてごめんなさいでした。だって、ぼんやり突っ立ってて邪魔だったんだもん。
Sadako's apology was strange. It wasn't even an apology, really. It literally sounded like an excuse. I looked at Chie and Satoshi, wondering if that was enough. It didn't seem like Sadako had any intention of throwing the ball at me. Because Sadako wasn't even looking at me, not really. It was like I didn't belong in her world. She never treated me this coldly before. And before anything else, she's talking strangely. It seemed like the situation that had befallen me was a rewind to the past so far that Satoshi was still around. Something else had happened, something bizarre that I didn't understand. So I felt as I listened to the odd way Sadako was talking. She sounded far more normal than the Sadako I knew. Sadako made a face, but reading and a standard written apology was enough, and ran off into the hallway. I checked the clock. It's right in the middle of afternoon break. She's probably rushing back to the schoolyard because she didn't want to miss any more playtime. She turned back on me and ran away. I suddenly felt very cold and sad. Sadako, I knew it hurt me enough to put me in the nurse's office. She would have stayed with me the entire time. Her footsteps vanished before she'd even looked at me once. It didn't seem like she hated me. It felt like she wasn't even interested. What was happening? What year and what month was it right now, anyway? Hanyu was nowhere to be found. Despite wanting to know, no calendar or anything like that was nearby, so it didn't seem like I could find out right now. Most normal people give you a strange look if you ask what the year and month were. I learned from my long journey that I had to be careful about that. Instead, I decided to push that question aside for the moment.
ごめんね、リカちゃん。サトコには後でよく言っておくよ。きっとリカちゃんが寂しそうにしてたんで、遊びに誘ってあげたかったんだよ。
みー、ありがとうなのです。もう気にしてませんので、いいのですよ。
Sadako's older brother Satoshi apologized in her stead. Seemed no different from the Satoshi I knew.
そう。じゃあ、僕はもう行くから。
ありがとうなのですよ、サトシ。
Satoshi gave a little wave of his hand, turned, and left the nurse's office. A new set of footsteps approached in his place. Facing sound, it wasn't a child, probably Coach. Chie had called for him.
先生、急にお呼びしてしまってすみません。さっき意識が戻ったところなんです。
そうですかね。それはよかったよかった。
It was a throaty voice. It wasn't Irie? The man who suddenly appeared was one I'd never seen in the clinic or even at the Irie Institute. It was a large man with round curves, the exact opposite of Irie. The stubble on his face made him seem rugged, so distinct that I wouldn't forget him even if I'd only met him once. Yet I had no recollection of him. He was wearing a white robe, and she had called him a doctor from the clinic. Must have been a doctor from the Irie clinic. I'd never met him
やあ、リ
before.
カちゃん。災難だったな。
And he does not have any art style whatsoever.
ボールがぶつかったのは後頭部。ちょっと見せてもらっていいかい？
みー。
But waiting for an answer, the mountaineerish doctor felt around the back of my head. His fingers were uncultured, completely different from Irie's
今度
delicate
は目を見
hands.
せてくれるかい？大丈夫みたいだな。何か頭痛とかはするかい？酔うとか平衡感覚がおかしいとかあるかな？
ないのです。
多分大丈夫とは思いますけどね。念のため診療所に連れて行って脳波を見ましょう。まあわしの見たところ問題なしですな。
Gahaha. Doctor laughed uproariously, spraying spittle everywhere. Chie gave a look of relief too, as if that was a sign there were no problems.
そうですか。では、念には念ということで、よろしくお願いいたします。古部さん、先生と一緒に診療所に行ってきてください。
午後の診療が始まる前に済ませてしまおう。さあ、行こう。
Big doctor, acting too familiar for my taste, pushed me out the door. I could fight my feeling of wrongness. I was taken out of the nurse's office. What was this world? Sometimes the dice came up with strange numbers and caused little differences. This was the first world that felt this wrong to me. The dice rolls turn up something rare. Repeating this world for over 100 years, I thought I'd pretty much figured out every event, yet all this felt so strange to me. Something immeasurable about how strange it was, and I couldn't help but feel intensely anxious. I put my shoes on at the entrance before being taken to a parked car in front of the school gate. All the while, I stared at the big man's back as we walked, racking my brain, trying to remember him, but I couldn't come up with anything. No matter how much I thought back, I couldn't recall any man like this in the Mountain Dogs, much less the Irie Institute. If Satoshi were here, then it had to be before June 1982. Hanyu would always be there as soon as I woke up, to tell me what was going on in that world. In this world, I haven't seen Hanyu even once. Radiant sunlight, the annoying cicadas' cries, the lively voices of my classmates, I knew them all so well. Something was different. It almost made me sick. Hanyu, where am I? What kind of world is this? Hanyu didn't answer me. Fine then. I went home and opened a bottle of wine. She'd be sure to come rushing in. Not once had she ever allowed me a few elegant minutes to myself.
みーちゃん、みーちゃん。
甘いね。ドッジボールの鉄則は弱いやつ狙い。私を狙うのは戦略ミスだよ。それ、次にトロいやつはお前さ。
いっちゃってってて。
So several classmates playing a game of dodgeball. Mion and Rena were there in the crowd. Rena? Any world where Rena was present was later than April 1982. And Satoshi disappeared from the village in June 1982. The only time Rena and Satoshi could be here at the same time was the short span from April to June of 1982. Didn't seem like I'd gone as far into the past as I'd feared. Still, I had to repeat June of 1983. That hadn't changed. I have to complete those long, difficult days of nothing but strife yet again? Teaming up with my friends, trusting each other, grappling with our suspicions of each other, believing in miracles, and fighting alongside everyone. All the coincidences in the world to help save us. If we missed any one of those elements in the process, the world would end in horrific tragedy. I'd gotten past this dead end before. This was the second time, so I understood a little of how to fight against Takano's group. I probably wouldn't have to spend another whole 100 years. Even still, it'd definitely take several of those years, if not dozens. But I never wanted to spend another day in that June of 1983 ever again. In despair, I felt at reaching the goal once, then getting kicked back to the start. Got into the man's car, and as it bumped over the rough roads, I sorted out the situation I was in. That day in July 1983. I went to have a good time at the pool with everyone. On the way home, there was an accident. I died. Right before dying, I used the power I thought I'd never have to use again to turn back time once more. This world was probably in June of 1982. It was considerably hot, so the Watanagashi Festival couldn't be far off. And the countdown to Satoshi's disappearance had already begun. Earlier in the nurse's office, he'd given me kind and considerate words, but an unyielding darkness had been starting to take control of his heart, his fear of his inescapable terminal illness's footsteps. I thought back to how the Hojo siblings had looked at the nurse's office, and to Sadako and Satoshi's everyday sibling relationship would cease to be an everyday thing in just another few days or weeks. Sadako's somewhat cold treatment made hurt, and I remembered that and felt pity for her. Sadako, for now, at least, treasure that time. Your relationship with Satoshi is limited. That cruel fact hadn't been overruled a single time in any of these hundreds of years of worlds. In other words, it was inevitable. I could only sympathize with the fate awaiting Sadako now. Eventually, the Irie clinic came into view. Every time I saw it, I was struck by its magnificence, almost too much for Hinamizawa. This time, the clinic building felt a little dull, so affected by the sadness coloring my heart. The car came to a stop in the employee parking lot near the back entrance.
具合は大丈夫かな？
全然平気なのです。検査なんて大げさなのですよ。
頭はその場では何もなくても、後から突然来ることもあるから怖い。きっちり検査しような。何事もなければ午後の授業には戻れるよ。
This is the first time I've met the strange doctor, but he didn't seem unreliable. The cloudiness in my expression made him look like I was worried my injury was serious. That was why he tried to cheer me up. His attempt at encouragement was off base, but for now I told myself he wasn't a bad person at least. The air inside the clinic smelled unfamiliar to me. Inside it was the same clinic as the one I knew, but something was different. It felt old, like I'd find cobwebs if I looked. I recognized none of the nurses we passed. The only people I knew were some elderly villagers chatting as they watched TV in the waiting room.
リカちゃんじゃねえの？どうしちゃったの？風？
校庭で飛んできたボールが後頭部に当たったんですよ。一応脳波を見ておこうと思いましてね。
頭は怖いからね。でも若いんだからボールの一つや二つ平気平気。
The old people laughed aloud as though rubbing some spit on the bump would fix it. Something about their behavior was strange, too. People knew I'd get out their beads, start praying, and make a big fuss just because I got a bump on my head. Maybe they'd say 1 or 2 balls is fine because you're young. If I were a normal child, me in particular in Hinamizawa, that was impossible. It all seemed very wrong. Something huge, something I couldn't ignore, was different about this world.
さあ、リカちゃん、入って入って。
So the large man went straight to the exam room. He called me in. Queen Carrier had come for an examination, and the next logical step was that Irie, the director, would appear. He hadn't appeared yet. The discomfort I'd been feeling this whole time got even stronger. And then I spotted something odd. A notice from the hospital hung in the waiting room. Please be sure to bring your insurance card on the first checkup of the month. Takano Clinic. Huh? Takano Clinic? Looked around at the other notices hung around the waiting room. All of them had Takano Clinic written at the end. Not a single one said Irie Clinic. Where am I?
どうぞ。時間ないから早く入って。
I heard the man's deep voice from the examination room again. I ignored him and burst out of the front entrance. Why? Because I wanted to know the name of this clinic. Kano Clinic. Wow, they actually did change the hiragana to be Takano for this. Looked exactly like the Irie Clinic I knew. There it was, the answer to why everything felt so out of place.
ここどこよ。
Feel the strength drain from my body. My legs gave out and I sat. For a while I stared dumbly up at the name that was inexplicably different. I'm not sure how long I stayed like that. Eventually the big doctor from before and a nurse came running out. They asked me if I suddenly felt sick. If I didn't answer, they would annoyingly get even more concerned. Somewhat offhandedly, I lied and said I felt a little dizzy for a moment. They must have thought the vertigo pointed to a symptom of something. They picked me up and brought me to the examination room. Took me up to an EEG terminal and told me to rest.
本当に何でもないのです。めんどくさそうだったので、逃げちゃおうと思ったら、転んでしまっただけなのですよ。
何でもないかは医者が決める。わしがいいと言うまでそこに横になっていなさい。いいかね。
Felt like the more I tried to say, the more complicated things would get, so for now I decided to play along so I could get out of there.
先生、入江というお医者はいますか？
何？誰だって？
入江です。
入江？それはリカちゃんのどこの病院だい？
We're getting nowhere. Is Irie not in this world? To everything the other adults like Akasaka and Kasai did during the long battle of June 19, Irie's presence might have seemed to matter little. It was extremely important that he was around. Without his determination to sever the chain of sadness created by Hinamizawa syndrome, there was essentially no way for Hinamizawa to break free of its 1,000-year curse. And Irie wasn't here. Plus Irie was my only ally who knew I was the Queen Carrier. That ally was gone. The strange ways Sadako was talking, the absence of my only ally from Tokyo, Irie. No doubt some unpleasant die had landed on a one. Then, despite my ally Irie not being here, was Takano still behind everything? When you get one bad roll, you get a bunch more.
高野先生はずいぶん前にお亡くなりになられてるよ。この村にこんな立派な診療所を建てられた功績をたたえてね。わしはお会いしたことはないんだが、大変立派な先生だったという話だよ。
立派な先生ですか。
Did the occult-obsessed Takano ever be praised as a splendid doctor? She passed away a while ago? When I looked around the examination room, I found a picture of some old people hanged in a frame. On it was written, Founder and First Director, Hifumi Takano. Hifumi Takano? Not the man Takano looked up to? She called her grandfather? He was the first one to discover the Hinamizawa syndrome, but nobody accepted his theories about it, and he passed away in despair. Takano understood his chagrin, eventually made a big decision, then began to build a future so stable he could call it fate. That Takano?
鳥の鷹の鷹野さん？高い低いの鷹野先生じゃな。わしは知らんがね。看護師さんにもいないし。 わしが来る前に辞めた古い看護師さんかね？
違うと思います。若い女な。
うちにはそんな人はおらんがね。そんな看護師さんがいたら、ぜひうちに勤めてもらいたいね。
The man guffawed with delight. It certainly didn't look like he was lying. He was speaking the truth. And even Takano was gone? Irie was absent. Takano was absent. Irie Institute didn't have its director or vice director. What did that all mean? Who was the director then? Oh, what about the mountain dogs? Irie Institute was, at its heart, a research institution. Without them acting as its hands and feet, it couldn't
おこ
exist.
のぎ造園という造園屋さんはありますですか？
え？造園屋さあね。造園屋さんにご縁があったことはないからね。ちょっとわかりかねるけど、それはどこの業者さん？
沖宮に事務所があったと思います。
なら後で電話帳で調べてみたらいい。個人では載せない人もいるけど、会社とかなら大抵は載ってると思うがね。
Could the Irie Institute not exist in this world? That mean this world didn't have a dead end at all? I couldn't figure anything out. Which dice were showing ones and which were showing six. Or was the stranger part the dots and the dice themselves? The game board I was a piece on now, and the game board I knew, were they different? Let's be a little more optimistic. Is it possible that Tokyo hadn't chosen Irie but this man instead? Then would this man know I was the Queen Carrier? Did, then a number of things would fall into place. Prudence of giving me a brain scan after just getting knocked over by a ball to the head. It was not because he knew I was special that I was the Queen Carrier. And was this man playing the role of Irie in this world? I looked at the name tag on the robe he put on after coming into the room and read the name.
Yamamoto.
Natural response. It seemed the name Yamamoto wasn't a problem. Was this Yamamoto person the director of the Irie Institute, or rather, the Yamamoto Institute? It's also possible that he'd crowned this clinic with the Takano name in commemoration of him succeeding Fumi Takano's
山本
research.
はひなみ沢症候群のことはわかりますか？
ひなみ沢なんだって？
僕が女王感染者だとかわかりますか？
女王？リカちゃんじゃまだお姫様ってところだな。将来は女王様になりたいのかい？そりゃでっかい夢だね。はい、OK。もう外していいよ。
I learned just from that short exchange that Yamamoto had nothing to do with Hinamizawa syndrome. There were a few people unconnected to Tokyo in the Irie Institute, too. There were only a small handful of nurses and office workers. Besides, the Queen Carrier was currently in the clinic. Anyone connected to the Hinamizawa syndrome would have come rushing to me. Yamamoto would come rushing to me, but he didn't know I was the Queen Carrier. What did that mean? I listened hard to try to catch the sound of Irie's indiscreet laughter. All I heard was the TV in the waiting room, and the motor of the goldfish aquarium. The maid-obsessed man with his ulterior motives during checkups was nowhere to be seen in the examination room. I was simply uncomfortable. The smells of dust and medicine made me feel unpleasant. Now I knew. This really wasn't the clinic I knew. It wasn't just a strange feeling anymore. Clear facts now. Yamamoto left for a moment and came back and told me there was nothing wrong with my
具合が悪い
readings.
ところがないなら学校にもう戻ってもいいよ。もうすぐ午後の診療が始まっちゃうから一人で学校まで行けるかい？
み
じゃあどっちだい？
はい、大丈夫です。一人で学校に戻れますです。
そうか。じゃあもう千恵先生には学校にこれから戻ると電話した。
I saw Yamamoto pick up the phone on the table. Spotted a tabletop calendar next to it. June Showa 58. Showa 58, what was that in AD again? Pacific War ended in Showa 20, which was 1945. 58 minus 20. Bad at borrowing. Luckily, I don't need it. 58 minus 20 is 38. 38 plus 20 is definitely 58. Yeah, 38 to 1945. 45 plus 38 is 83. It's 1983, June. Wasn't the same period of time I had just been living in? But, It's impossible. 1983. Satoshi is here? And Irie isn't here. Takano isn't here. Sadako's acting strangely, and even Hanyu is gone. Where am I? I know you're wasting time somewhere. Get over here with your ow-wows and tell me what kind of world this is. I walked through downtown on my way back to school. All the storefronts were familiar. Nothing had changed. For some reason, there were less people and more stores with their shutters closed. This apparent state of decline reminded me of New Year's or New Year's Eve. It's a strange sight during a season when you can hear the cicadas crying. I barely passed anyone. Even when old people walked by, they didn't talk to me. Normally, if I met an old person in the middle of the day like this, they'd ask if I had a cold and was staying home from school, start rubbing their prayer beads and saying weird things. There's none of that. Just like the old people in the clinic, they reacted with disinterest. I wasn't in the mood for it anyway, so I was thankful they didn't do any of that. There was already a heap of oddities before me, and I couldn't help but feel like it was growing even bigger. Afternoon break was long over by the time I got to school, and it was now time for afternoon classes. I went through the entrance and changed into my slippers. Then I noticed another strange thing. There were a lot of empty shoe cubbies. Empty was different from absent. Anyone enrolled would either leave slippers or regular footwear in their locker, no matter what. Neither was present. That meant they weren't in this class to begin with. Sometimes people took their slippers home to wash during the weekends, but any lockers being empty during the day was unthinkable. I counted a little over 10 pairs of shoes. That was only half how many people were in the school I knew. Everything was so messed up, I had no idea what was going on. I steeled myself and opened the classroom door. Everyone turned around to look at me. There were truly only half of my familiar classmates there. They weren't absent. There's only half as many seats were actually in the classroom.
フルデさん、着席してください。はいはい、皆さん。授業中ですよ。ドリルに集中して。
Jay clapped her hands. Everyone looked back down at their desks and workbooks, ignoring me altogether. My seat. Satoshi was sitting at the desk next to Sadako's. That didn't seem to be my seat. Where was it? Soon I found an open seat, small and quiet in the back near the window. I could tell from the pattern on the floor cushion, my disaster hood in it. It seemed to be Rika Frude's seat in this world. It was in the corner, so the classroom had forgotten about it. There were no seats next to it, no wood you would see when looking at the blackboard. A place where I wouldn't block anyone's view whether or not I wasn't here. That seat was almost symbolic of how I've been feeling ever since I awoke. I sat down and took out my workbook, and pretending to study, I looked around the classroom. Mian Sonozaki was here. He didn't seem very different. Ryugu was here too. The way she was helping the child in his seat over with his work was very like her. Sadako and Satoshi were sitting together as friendly siblings. Satoshi, being the older brother, was teaching her things, but Sadako looked disgruntled. His words went in one ear and out the other. It's almost like she didn't hate studying. It seemed like their roles being reversed. She looked after him at home, made me smile a little. I felt a tiny pain in my chest from Sadako's cold treatment of me in the nurse's office. As far as I could tell from looking at her individually, she seemed totally normal. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong there. Sadako was with Satoshi. She was often gloomy because of problems at home, or their aunt's abuse, so they were acting like normal siblings. Though I knew it was Rika Sadako, that felt wrong. Sadako had a normal life, that was fine. Bigger shock, though, was the absence of the most important person in our group of friends. Walked around the room several times for him, but he wasn't here. Keiichi Maibara wasn't here. I made multiple excuses like I wasn't seeing right, or he just happened to be absent today. Even the list of students on cleaning duty hanging on the wall didn't have Keiichi's name on it. Everyone in the class would have had their names on it, but Keiichi's wasn't. Keiichi Maibara didn't exist in this classroom, even though it was June of 1983 in this world. I see. On rare occasions, there would be a world where Keiichi hadn't moved here. It wasn't the first time, but it was a sad thing. Keiichi was an important key to crushing the fate of June 1983. He wasn't on the game board, and this game was predetermined to be a loss. Was this even a game at all? No Irie, no Takano? Science at the Institute from Tokyo researching Hinamizawa syndrome? None of them were here. Didn't that mean that there was nobody at all to fight? I didn't need to fight then, since Keiichi's absence wasn't an issue. Actually, in this case, June 1983 wasn't fated to be a dead end, and, other words, in this world, the thousand dice all turned up ones, and that changed the absolute fate Takano constructed with a certain willpower into something else? I had no idea what that was. Could this world even be explained about what dots came up on the dice? Where am I? Someone tell me. Obviously, I'm able to focus during class. My head was filled with the listless cries of the cicadas, feeling of being out of place that I couldn't get rid of.
Kids! Lei! Sayonara!
Thankfully, Mion was still our class president. For some reason, that was a relief. Oh, or even a club in this world? If I could receive the baptism of those crazy club games, maybe it would clear up my feelings a little. The days we had clubbed, she would always call the members right when school ended. Expecting that, I stayed in my seat as everyone ran into the hallway. Sadako was one of those who dashed out. She was flying headlong towards the entrance, jostling the other kids her age. So she left two following behind her. Mion and Rena talked with each other as they got ready to leave. As far as it looked, we didn't have club. Club was annoying at times, but I yearned for it so much now. Was there no club in this world? As I started to feel lonely, a side grin spread across Mion's face before she and Rena approached me. Normally that grin would look gross, but when Mion did it, it didn't feel bad. Our eyes met. Thank goodness. Even in this world, the after-school club had the after-school club it was supposed to.
Hey, hey, Rika ちゃま。お帰りになる前にちょいといい？
部活なのですか？
For the first time since coming to this world, I smiled. No idea what was going on in this world, so having one of my hopes come true made me very happy for a moment.
違うよ。明日の日直でしょ？はい、これ日誌ね。で、部活って。なんだ、リカちゃんも私の部に入りたいの？
I gleaned two things from Mion's few words. One was that I still wasn't a club member. The other was that even so, the club still existed. To me right now, that was an incredibly happy thought.
ならばフルでリカ。君に我が部への入部を許可しよう。みーちゃんおかしい。
Rena laughed like it was a funny joke, but why?
ただ、リカちゃんとは同じ部になれても、部活動は一緒にはできないんだよね。
どうしてなのですか？
だって、リカちゃんちと私たちんち方向違うじゃない？
Oh. When Mion said her club, she probably meant the club of not having a club. Going home club. Must have been saying that we went home in different directions, which is why I couldn't do club activities, going home together with her. In other words, the club doesn't exist in this world either.
みーちゃん、その部活動、たまにはリカちゃんと一緒でもいいんじゃないかな。
逆方向じゃん。
たまにはいいんじゃないかな。かな。
I realized I'd have to go home all alone. Rena said she'd leave school with me. That kind consideration was just like the Rena I knew so well. We didn't have club, but Mion and Rena were still Mion and Rena.
私は悪いけどパスするわ。チャキチャキ直帰しておじさんとこバイト行かないとなんないんで。
そっか。じゃあ帰宅部の放課後活動は私とリカちゃんの2人でしよっか。ありがとです、レナ。
Three of us headed for the entrance. Our outdoor shoes were the
僕
only
が
ones
知って
left.
いるより上履きの数が少ないのです。
Yes, I decided to naturally mention it. Rena responded right away.
寂しいけど仕方ないよね。
よらば大樹、長いものにはぐーるぐるってとこさね。そんじゃ悪いけど、私はこのまま失礼させてもらうわ。じゃ、レーナ、リカちゃんのエスコートお願いね。
レイナ、何？なんでもないです。
Rena was the kind Rena I knew, but her name wasn't Rena. Rena. That was Rena's real name, but in worlds I knew she'd thrown it aside. Which meant she hadn't given up being Rena. Or her path leading to today was different from the one in the worlds I knew. I knew Rena hated herself because she considered herself responsible for her mother's divorce. And as she'd messed up both her life and herself, I decided to part ways with that old self, start over, and rename herself Rena. That didn't happen. That wasn't the only thing I learned from this conversation either. Regarding the number of people in class, I mentioned there weren't that many people. They acted like there was a reason. That meant the current number of students in this world hadn't been that way from the start. It had decreased to this number. Mion ran off, and Ren and I left school together. When we went across the schoolyard, I saw Sadako fooling around playing tag.
さとこちゃんを見てるの？
Name was different. She picked up on these things quickly.
さとこちゃんも悪気があってボールをぶつけたんじゃないと思うよ。許してあげて。別にどうとも思っていませんですよ。
Rena, Reina seemed to be trying to smooth it over. It kind of sounded like Sadako and I weren't normally friendly with one another. So I
僕とさ
asked,
とこは友達ではないのでしょうか。そんなことないよ。ちゃんと同じクラスの友達で。
the way she said that was enough of an answer. How anyway Sadako acted so coldly to me in the nurse's office. In this world, Sadako and I weren't friends. Maybe that made sense. After all, if Satoshi was alive and well, Sadako would spend all her time with him. The reason Sadako and I got to the point where we could call close was because Sadako ended up all alone. I asked her to stay at my house and we started living together. Of course, we were friends before that too, just nowhere near how close we were in 1983. Maybe in the end, our relationship was nothing more than me sitting in Satoshi's empty seat. I thought about that, and I considered what would happen if Satoshi was around in June 1983. Maybe this was the most natural future. With regretful eyes, I watched Sadako frolic about. Sadako looked like she was having a lot of fun with her other classmates. She wouldn't even notice me going home from school. And I stopped thinking about it so much. For the true world I need to reach, this world is all but a defective one. I don't need to bother trying to understand a broken world.
ずいぶん空いてるお店も減ったね。
When we went through downtown, all the stores with their shutters down, Reina spoke up. I didn't care about this world anymore, but as a classmate going home with her, I answered
どうし
unconsciously.
てこんなにもお店が減ってしまったのでしょう。それは当然だよ。来年までしか営業できないもんね。来るお客さんだって減る一方だし、早めにお店を畳んじゃう人がいても。どうして来年までしか営業できないのですか？仕方ないよ。立ち退きだし。立ち退き？残念だけど仕方ないもんね。それに村は沈んでも村が育んでくれた私たちの魂が滅びるわけじゃない。
I gave a start when I heard that. Couldn't. That wasn't possible. every single world, the story of Hinazawa being submerged under an artificial lake was always present. The Irie Institute, working from the shadows to make sure that the dam project was cancelled. There was no Irie Institute around to make them cancel it. It meant the dam project was proceeding as planned, and...
じゃあ村は注水は来年で決定らしいよ。水没にはかなり日数がかかるそうだけど、私は見たくないな。湖になった後ならともかく、沈んでる最中を見るのは悲しいかな。反対運動とかはなかった？最初はあったらしいね。でも国の発展のために私たちだけがわがままを言うわけにはいかない。よくは知らないけど、国の人も親身になって相談に乗ってくれたらしいよ。
The dam conflict I was hearing from Marina wasn't even a conflict in this world. Everything regarding the dam is completely different from the worlds I knew. Proposed the Hinazawa Dam project, which is the same as the worlds I knew. Relations between the nation who wanted to evict us and the residents who refused gradually worsened and eventually broke down. It snowballed into a dire conflict over the dam. In this world, it had been different from the very beginning. First off, relations between the country and the village were stormy at the very, very beginning, but apparently that was resolved quickly. The Sonozaki and Kimiyoshi families negotiated on the village's behalf, and they accepted the eviction on the promise of a large sum of compensation money. After that, the conversation was between the three families and the villagers. Nobody wanted to part with the soil of their ancestors, but for the villagers, they certainly couldn't kill wealthy. The money the nation would provide was no trivial matter. They worried over it to no end. Rumors flew, wondering if Oishiro-sama's curse would befall them if they abandoned these lands. The Furude family head, my father in other words, declared, couldn't be cursed if we built Oishiro-sama a new shrine somewhere else to remember to honor him. Despite many objections, the elderly agreed on a cooling-off period of several years. In addition to the compensation money, they demanded from the government the movement of the Furude shrine, the graveyard, and its symbolic trees, in addition to the guarantee of a new place they could call Hinamizawa. If those requests were fulfilled, they would consider agreeing to the eviction. The nation consented to this. They proposed preferential occupational rights of reclaimed public housing land, Shishibone. Prior to giving the town a new name, they considered the residents' proposal as most important, and they consented to the movement of the shrine, graveyard, and other locations as well. In conclusion, though there were several years of turmoil, dam conflict never happened in this world. Everything was resolved through talking alone. Villagers had actually agreed to the dam project. Actual construction of the dam had begun a few years ago. Apparently, construction vehicles were a constant source of traffic on the village's wider roads. The eviction deadline was set at the end of April next year, so more than a few families had begun moving out in advance. One closed shop's shutters had a worn paper notice on it. On it was written, "Our deepest gratitude for your many years of patronage." I spotted a few other notices with "opposed to the dam" on them. Those had deteriorated over time, a silent indication that the dam war was a thing of the past now.
クラスの子も全員が公営住宅に行くわけじゃないみたいだね。さとこちゃんちなんかはよそへ引っ越しちゃうみたいだよ。仲良しのみんな全員と会えるのも来年までかと思うと。
The village I was born and grew up in, being submerged, was very sad. All my classmates enjoying the stay at the fullest, even though they knew that, seemed so strong to me. The dam war never took place. That would cause several other effects. For example, the relationships between the Sonozaki and Hojo families. Beginning with the dam conflict, the Hojos declared themselves in favor of the dam. Sonozaki's in opposition, and the former ended up the scapegoat of the village for a long time. But that trouble never occurred in this world.
さとこちゃんのお家？さあ、普通だと思うけど、別にみーちゃんちとも特別接点はないと思うけどな。さとこは家族と仲良くできてますか？ああ、お父さんの話？
Even without the dam conflict, the presence of his stepfather would be a burden in Sadako's mind. The L5 symptoms appearing, she would push him from the viewing platform of the park, giving him the care of her malicious aunt and uncle. Her stepfather's presence would be the very gateway to Sadako's later
今
unfortunate
にして
fate.
思うと最初の頃のギクシャクした関係もいい思い出かもし血がつながっていない親子だからこそ互いが父であろう娘であろうと努力することによってひょっとすると実の親子より強い絆を作れることもあるかもしれない。私も何度かお話をしたことあるけど家族を支えようと頑張るいい人だったよ。それ聡子の今のお父さんの話なのですか？うん。
In this world, none of the dice threatening Sadako would count on a 1. Sadako, that make this world a happy place for her? My walk home with Rain was very significant for me understanding this world. I found out that this world's composition betrayed every last bit of my common sense. The reason Reina wasn't Rena. That was different from the very start. First, the Ryukyu family did move to Ibaraki. They had lived in Himizawa this entire time. My mother was still working as a designer at a small company in the city. My father had switched careers and was now a salesman for his wife's designs. The couple must have been on good terms for one to design things and the other to sell them. Always, her mother's position seemed to be stronger, but the relationship was an average one. A divorce, at the very least, seemed impossible. That meant a nice, pleasant family for Reina. It satisfied her fully. She even said that she lived a happy life. The fact that she knew that, without going through hardship though, she really was still Reina. I asked about the Takano clinic too. As the big Dr. Yamamoto had said, Takano Clinic was indeed the one who had been Miyo Takano's adopted grandfather, Fumi Takano. Right after the war, he built a surprisingly grand clinic in Himizawa, which had no doctors, and became a celebrity to the villagers. Knowing that there was a monument dedicated to Takano in place of one dedicated to Irie in the world's eye knew. After Takano's passing, there was nobody to succeed his place in the clinic. For a long time it had been left empty. That was when a man from Okinomi named Yamamoto had arrived and breathed new life into the clinic. Takano discovered Hinamizawa syndrome and searched for research sponsors but found none. Eventually, Miyo Takano would succeed him. What if the older Takano had found a sponsor? Neither Miyo Takano nor Irie would appear. Takano Clinic being built right after the war would make sense, which meant that Takano in this world had been blessed with good dice rolls. At this point, I had a vague idea about something. Weren't these dice rolls the exact opposite of the ones for the world I knew well? People themselves hadn't changed at all. The dice God had cast for these people were all reversed. It made sense that it had turned to such a strange world for me. I learned one more thing from talking to Reina, too. In this world, I had no friends. I was all alone. Ichi never transferred to our school. He didn't have a club. Sadako had no connection to me. Maybe it was only natural. At that point, I finally realized that Reina had sympathized with me going home alone and doing her going home club activities with me.
じゃあ、また明日ね。そっか。
For a moment I was confused when she said goodbyes to her in front of the temple, but I quickly understood. We were in front of the Furude main house. As Takano never appeared, there was no Irie Institute, nor any research into Himizawa syndrome. So, the parents never died. First, my parents cooperated with the researchers. When I fell ill with a high fever one day, they stopped cooperating, had some kind of trouble, and were assassinated. My mother was the hysterical type, and she made a fuss. Settling her down took a while. She made a fuss the Irie Institute, which wanted to do its research in secret. Naturally wanted to make sure she didn't talk. She held such an attitude, even knowing how shady the Institute was. In a sense, I couldn't deny that she reaped what she was sowed. In any case, no matter how many times I did this over, no matter how many times I warned her, it never worked. I'd resigned myself to the fact that I no longer had parents by 1981. I'd repeated it many times. I'd seen my parents for dozens of years in total, so I was fed up with them. We weren't on good terms to begin with anyway. And now in June of 1983, they were here again.
また明日会おうね。バイバイ。さよならなのに、ニパー。
Seeing Rana, I looked at my real home. with my mother patting out a dried futon on the yard. In normal worlds, they would always die, but in this one, they were alive the whole time. I found myself unsure how to talk to my real mother.
リカなの？お帰りなさい。
ただいまなのです。
手を洗ってうがいをしなさい。それから、明日持ってく教科書は今のうちに準備しておくのよ。
Her mom has no art style.
宿題は出なかった？
Yeah, she was my mother, all right. Honestly speaking, I wasn't used to the fruit I made house. My true home, but it had only ever been my home before 1983. There was no time. I waited in melancholy for the day Keiichi transferred here. Keiichi wouldn't transfer here, and my parents wouldn't die. Not in this world, I would never get out of this prison. Maybe that was a weird way to think about it. Without a dead-end fate, there was no victory or defeat, no destiny or miracles. This was my actual home. Nothing more and nothing less. I went to my room, put down my book bag, and took a breath. Usually when I was by myself, Hanya would appear. In this world, she hadn't shown up. How long are you planning on wasting time? Hurry up and appear and take me back to my original world. I knew by now this world was odd and filled with what-ifs. I had up to here with my exploration of this alternate universe. Hanya didn't appear. Oh, that's right, Hanya was by herself in Ritual Storehouse a lot. Maybe she was there right now. In any case, whatever else happened, I just wanted to see Hanya. I put on my shoes and ran out towards the shrine. I turned my back on my annoying mother, who called after me, asked if I'd really rinsed out my mouth. The world where my father was alive, it was hard to get a key to the storehouse. But thanks to the innumerable worlds I've been through, I found a way to get into the storehouse without it. I could hear the elders having a pleasant talk in the assembly hall. My father's laugh mixed in with theirs. My father hated me even going near the ritual storehouse. Well, considering what it stored, I could sort of understand why he would want to let his beloved daughter inside it. Making sure no one was looking at it, I climbed up a tree, running behind the storehouse. The climb didn't go as smoothly as when Sadako had shown me that she could do it. In any case, I crawled up stubbornly and jumped down onto the storehouse roof. I was a little scared of jumping. I climbed pretty high up the ground. Even a centenarian witch can't escape the dangers of heights. If I recalled right, there was a broken lattice window on the roof. In and out through there. This world was betraying all my expectations, giving me the exact opposite. So that maybe you couldn't go in and out through it anymore. And the place Sadako once told me about is broken just like she said, and a child would be able to fit inside. Even trivial things like this were a relief. Maybe just the sun setting in the west would be a relief for me right now. In this world, it could always set in the east. Yes, this discomfort I felt, having to doubt everything, made me feel dizzy and sick.
Hanyu, iru?
No answer. I was too afraid to call it again. Maybe if I did, I still wouldn't get an answer. For me personally, Hanyu not existing in the world was the one dice roll that couldn't happen.
Hanyu?
And I felt something I couldn't describe. The presence of someone, but not a person. Something I could only perceive, the presence of Hanyu. Hanyu always answered me when I called for her. She wasn't now. What did that mean? She was here. She was. Couldn't help poking my head through the roof. Climbed down a bundle of hanging chains and entered.
Hanyu! どこなの？返事をして！リカ！どこにいるのですか？
This time I heard her for sure. There was no doubt.
私はここよ。どこなの？あなたの姿が全然見えない。リカ、返事をして。
Honey's feeble words implied that she was actually the one who couldn't hear my voice. I looked for a place where I could hear her better. Before I realized it, I went to the altar in front of the holy vessel. Something that looked like a small crystal ball was on the altar, I sensed it giving off a faint light. That was where Hanya's voice seemed to be coming from. The ball was about the size of a large toy marble. Proceeded respectfully on a small cushion which told me it was no ordinary stone. I took the crystal ball in my hand and pressed it to my ear.
リカ、聞こえたならもう一度返事をしてください。リカ、リカ。
There was no doubt. I was hearing Hanyu's voice from this crystal ball. It sounded like it was searching for me, growing more distant all the while.
聞こえるわ。私よ、リカよ。私はここにいるわ。
リカ、リカ、あなたの声が聞こえますです。どこにいるのですか？あなたが見つけられない。声が遠くてわからない。もっと強く呼びかけてくださいです。
ここよ。私はここよ。どうしてあなたの声が水晶玉から聞こえるの？そんなことはどうでもいい。私はここよ。細工殿の祭壇の前にいるわ。羽生。
あなたの声が聞こえます。今探してます。かけらを手放さないで、そのまま。
私はここよ。羽生、早く来て。羽生。
For a while, I kept shouting her name as if I'd gone mad. It plugged into a tin can phone line right before the string snapped. Hanyu's voice cut off in the middle. She left me behind, alone in the darkness of the storehouse. It was scarier than anything else I could imagine. Though she told me to, I shouted her name over and over again. Hanyu had to be searching for me by listening to my voice. I didn't know what her situation was, but it seemed Hanyu and I were far away from one another. We were immeasurably distant. As the crystal ball's light strengthened, I knew she was coming closer. First the light I sensed from it had been faint, but now it was as bright as a weak miniature light bulb. See, it was
リ
shining.
カ、どういうことですか？あなたのいる世界に入れない。
はあ？何を言ってんのよ。助けてほしいのは私よ。何でもいいから早く来て。私をこの世界から連れ出して。
リカ、よく聞いてくださいです。あなたの世界がなぜか僕を拒むのです。こんなことはありえないことなのです。
I knew that she's both a paranormal existence and a deity. I couldn't imagine any situation that would make her anxious enough for her to weakly say this is impossible. All I could do was keep on wailing, half insanely, for her to do something, anything.
でもどうしようもないのです。こんなこと初めてです。ありえないんです。
そんな情けないこと言ってないで。早く何とかしてよ。何とかして。
ダメです、リカ。あなたの世界が僕を拒絶する力を放っているのです。それを何とかしないと僕にはどうしようもないのです。
わけわかんないこと言わないで。神様のあんたを拒む力って何よ。そんなのあるわけないでしょ。
そうなのです。そんなの。でもかけらがこちら側にないから断面を合わせられない。どうしてかわからないけど、かけらが今リカがいる世界に紛れ込んでしまっているのです。
かけら？何の話？私にもわかるように説明して。私にできることなら何でもするわ。
Continuing to act so deranged wouldn't help with anything. I managed to figure out what Henry wanted to say, and I had to eliminate the obstacle. The situation utterly escaped me. It seemed like if I didn't do something, Honey couldn't appear
取
in
り
front
乱
of
して
me.
悪かったわ。落ち着くからもう一度説明して。一体どういうことなの？
リカ、どうしてかわかりませんが、神の世界にあるべきかけらの一部が今リカのいる世界に紛れ込んでいるようなのです。それは例えるなら、開けるべき扉の中にその鍵が閉じ込められているかのよう。
かけらって何？
リカにとって世界に見えるものは、より高い次元の世界ではかけらと呼ばれているのです。そのかけらをジグソーパズルのように組み合わせて世界を渡り歩いてきたのです。
なるほど。その例えでなんとなく状況は分かったわ。私が今いるこの世界というかけら、いえ、 ジグソーパズルのピースは噛み合う部分がどうにかなっていて、周りのピースと組み合ってくれないと。
そうです。その欠けた部分は必ずこちら側にあるのですが、なぜかこちら側ではなくそちら側にあるのです。
神の世界にあるべきかけらがなぜか人間の世界にこぼれ落ちていて欠陥を起こしている。
そんなところなのです。
わかったわ。そのかけらをどうにかすればいいわけね。あなたの指示に従うわ。そのかけらはどこにあるの？それをどうすればいいの？そこはあうあう言うところじゃないでしょ。どこにあるのよ。そしてどんな形をしているのよ。
わからないのです。
はあ？わからないものをどう探せってのよ。
僕だってわかりません。だってここからはリカの声しか聞こえないので、今の僕にはその世界に干渉することが何もできないのです。
かけらってからにはこんな感じの水晶のキラキラ光るかけらみたいな感じなの？
多分そうだと思いますが、工事の世界にあるべきものが人間の世界にもたらされた場合、どんな姿に変わるのか想像もつきませんです。
Felt all my energy drain out of me and I heaved a
探
sigh.
し物の形もわからないとは最悪ね。で、仮にそれを見つけたらどうすればいいの？神の世界に戻すってどうやるの？それすらもわかんないっての。
ごめんなさい。こんなこと初めてなんで、僕にもよくわからないのです。
I laughed, mostly at myself. Before I realized it, I couldn't stop my tears from falling. Getting sent to this crazy world, and I didn't even know how to get back. Today of all days. I was in such high spirits going to the pool with my friends. A tiny fragment of happy days we'd all obtained after escaping the dead end of June 1983. And just because I was messing around on the way back just a little, I got sent to this
それを
horrible
愚痴ったら
world.
結局道路でふざけてた私の
Lost my balance on my bicycle, got thrown off, and fell into the car there. Common traffic accident. Common death of a child. Just happened to be me this time. Future I'd won over 100 years. Now, just because of that, everything was in pieces. Way all I want, the only thing at fault was my own carelessness. In fact, I should be thankful to Honey for letting me live. Sending me to a world like this, it's too cruel. Now, it wasn't as though Honey sent me here because she wanted to. I know that,
リ
I
カの
know.
覚えている通りなのです。僕たちの力はどんどん痩せ衰えていった。そしてその力の最後の挑戦で勝利を勝ち取ったのです。だからこの力はもう二度と使えないはずでした。
その使えないはずの力で私を助けてくれたということ？
はい、もうどうしようもありませんでしたので、リカの体は自転車から投げ出され、サイコロの目次第では車の上を転がって怪我ぐらいで済んだかもしれません。でも運悪く投げ出されたリカは車のタイヤの前に。
From Honey's words colored with sadness, felt as like she'd watch me fly off and get run over by the car and die.
はって絶句して呆然として、車は急ブレーキでガードレールにぶつかってすごい音がしましたが、そしてサトコがリカの体に駆け寄るのですが、あなたが
知恵がいつも言ってたっけ？道路でふざけちゃいけませんって。
Imagine the rest of the story without Honey telling me. One day we had was wiped out and innocent by my careless fooling around. dove together into the longest June 19th, 1983, these past 100 years. The peaceful future we finally reached with the sharing of countless miracles was wiped out in an instant. My corpse was too horrible to look at. Echo came running over first, and then everyone else came. I all wished they'd wake up from that nightmare until they lost hope, broke down and wept. But a heart-splitting sadness, and I was actually careless, grumbling about wanting to go home since this world was uncomfortable, counted for nothing. That mean in the end, it's all my own fault? Struggled through so many years to reach that future, carelessly lost by nobody's fault but my own. Since Hanyu was here for me, so I should be thankful. If that hadn't happened to someone other than me, they'd just lose their life, nothing more. Just the fact that there was hope, and if it was only a single tiny ray, surely meant I was fortunate.
ありがとう。バカが不注意で事故死なんて日本中にいくらでも溢れてる。私もそのうちの一人だった。だからしのごの言わずに死ねばいいものを。こうして、そしてとても難しいことには違いないけど、おさらいするわ。私を元の世界に連れ戻すにはそうね。
はい、もちろんです。僕も早くリカと一緒に元の世界に戻り。
当然よ。100年を超える日々を経て勝ち取ったあの世界へ戻るのよ。そのために私はさらに100年の年月を経てもいい。負けるもんかくじけるもんか。ほんのちょっと道路でふざけただけでもう100年の懲役を追加されても泣くもんか。
リカ、元の世界でもみんなが祈ってます。自分の命を捧げても時間を巻き戻して事故をなかったことにしてほしいって、その祈りがあったから僕はきっとリカを見つけることができたのですよ。
In the storehouse, I could only smell dust, but I caught the scent of incense. Couldn't see it, I couldn't hear it. Somehow I knew. It was my funeral. Thought I could hear them, my friends heartbroken, grieving over my coffin. The cries were incredibly sad, so painful, as though it would tear me apart. I understood. My carelessness destroyed not only my life, but everyone else's happiness.
帰るわ。私は絶対に元の世界に帰るわ。それがどんなにか細い道でも絶対。
My tears, full of sadness, mixed with determination, mixed with saltiness, dropped to the floor.
その世界に閉じ込められたことだって、あの昭和58年の袋小路と同じ。一見どうしようもない運命に見えて絶対ではないのです。
分かってるわ。圭一に教えられた。そして高野にまで教えられたわよね。
Fate was thinner than a goldfish scooping net. Strong enough feelings can reshape the future.
そうです、リカ。その息、確かにきっかけはリカの不注意だったかもしれませんです。でもリカにはそれを償い、なかったことにできる機会が与えられた。それはとても幸運なことなのです。
分かってる。普通の人間なら来世でやり直しってところを私だけが最後のチャンスをもらえてる。その意味理解できてるわ。
リカ、なんとかして僕を拒むかけらを探し出してほしいのです。僕もこちら側の世界から何かわからないか探してみます。
ノーヒントってのが答えるわね。あとこの世界に羽生がいない以上 この世界で私が死んだらジ・エンドってことなんでしょう。
はい。今のその世界には僕の力は及びませんのです。だからどうかリカ、くれぐれも注意して。
分かってる。二度と道路でふざけたりしないわ。
ヒントは確かにありませんが、でも僕はこの村の神様で、この村だけを見守ってきました。その僕に干渉する力なのですから。
この村のどこかあなたに関わるものだとしたら、正直なところこの細具殿の中に収められて。
リカ、細具殿の中にいつもの世界にはない何かが収められてはいませんか？
どうかしら。その何かが目立つものって。
僕に干渉する。多分神の世界に限りなく。
また難儀な話。少なくともこの祭壇。しかしただのビー玉のくせに
リカが今手にしているのはフルデ神社の至宝。かつて僕がお社様としてフルデ神社に長い時間の中で込められた力のほとんどが薄れてしまいましたが、もっと力が残っていれば、あるいはこんな力に屈せずその世界へ迎えに行けたかもしれないのに。
ということはこの水晶玉であなたと話をするのも。
はい。リカには僕の声が聞こえていますか？僕の方にはどんどんリカの声が。
なるほど。電池の切れかかったトランシーバーってわけね。分かった。無駄な連絡は慎むようにするわ。それならもうしばらくは話ができるんでしょう。
多分。
十分よ。私はこれから細具殿の中を漁るわ。この水晶玉と同じサイズだとしたらどこに紛れ込んでてもおかしくない。それに細具殿の中とは限らないんでしょう。根気のいる作業になるわね。
リカ、どうか頑張って。僕はここにいて応援することしかできない。そしてその応援の言葉すらもう。
大丈夫よ。絶対にこちらの世界の扉を開いてあなたを招き入れるわ。あなたと一緒にあの楽しかった世界へ戻ることを約束するわ。だからあなたも頑張って。何かヒントになりそうなことが分かったら教えて。
はい。
じゃあもうこれくらいにしましょう。更新を終わるわ。またね羽生。約束する。元の世界へ帰れたら冷蔵庫をシュークリームで埋め尽くしてあげるわ。
その約束楽しみに待っていますのです。
His voice gently vanished, like water seeping into sand. That didn't mean Hanyu had vanished. It sounded like I was talking to Hanyu on the public phone, and my 10 yen ran out. We had been in different worlds, but we were cooperating, trying to get out of this world and back to the last one. I thought about it. Hanyu had always been an ally in my life. In this world, that ally was gone. Maybe that was a fitting punishment for wasting my life by being careless. Get back to the last world, I would pile up as many stones as I needed to. These were the banks of the river Styx, Nirvana. My viewpoint is one who had lost her life in the previous world. I'll get back. I swear I'll get back there. And suddenly the inside of the storehouse brightened. Someone had just turned on the switch with a naked bulb hanging from the ceiling. Then with a heavy clank the door opened. Father appeared there. His face was like a demon's. Ah, that was right. I'd entered the cordoned-off ritual implement storehouse. I only received the right to enter the storehouse when I succeeded them as the head of the Frude family. In other words, in a world with my parents alive, I wasn't allowed to come in here.
どこから入ったんだ。
Our dad also does not have any art.
細具殿には入ってはならんとあれほど言っただろう。
My father was in a rage. Thanks to the property imprinted, one's very genes that made children tremble when their fathers look at them with a scary face, I reflexively cringe with fear. He grabbed me by the back of my neck and took me outside. And I ended up being disciplined, something I'd forgotten for a very long time. My parents being here is such a bother. Just when I thought I'd been lucky, they made it through the year 1981. They're getting in the way of me returning to the final world. Storehouse, I've been chanting Hanyu's name pretty loud, so he probably noticed. Investigate the storehouse for real tomorrow, but I have to take extreme caution so that my father didn't find me. In the middle of the night, unable to sleep, face up on my futon, my rear end swelling up from all the spanking, bit my pillow and cried again, then thought back to what I had to do. This was my room. This was my futon. This wasn't where I was supposed to sleep. The futon I was supposed to go home to was in the small house on the second floor of the renovated warehouse, right next to Sadako's. In this world, the youth group was probably still using it as a meeting place, so my futon obviously wouldn't be there. Then, what futons are supposed to use in this world? Punishment for doing something stupid and careless, bringing the future we'd all won to nothing. I needed to find what was keeping Hanyu away so I could call her here. It would take a lot of effort. For that reason, I needed to build up my energy and get some sleep. Shedding tears was nothing but a waste of time and stamina. I knew that, but until I fell asleep, I wept into my pillow. So with that, we're about halfway through the game based on the anime adaptation. We would be halfway through this second episode of this arc. I hope Sadako would be there when I woke up that morning. I hope this baffling world was just a half-awake dream of mine. In fact, it doesn't even look like we have the breaks between chapters with the tips. Looks like it's just one straight shot. When I awoke, not to a familiar ceiling, the one in the Frude main house, I felt nothing but disappointment. My mind hazy, I recalled the situation I'd been put into. Thanks to my own carelessness, I'd gotten lost in this strange world. Hanyu's power couldn't reach here, so it'd be incredibly difficult to escape. It's like trying to climb up the spider's thread to paradise. But the spider's thread was still there. No matter how thin it was, its presence meant that there was still a chance to discover what was blocking Hanyu's power. Didn't even know what it looked like. The only possible clue was that Hanyu was the deity of Hinamizawa, so it was probably somewhere in the village. I picked up the crystal ball which had snuck out of the ritual implement storehouse. He just snuck out the most important thing, but sure. The ball gave off a weak and somehow unnatural light. I pressed it to my forehead, and I could sense a faint presence that only I, as a witch, could feel. I was sure that whatever I needed to find, gave the same feeling from it as this. Again, like the crystal ball, I'd probably have to hold it to my forehead to sense anything. It didn't seem like things would be as simple as wandering about until I felt something. But if it was related to Hanyu's power like the crystal ball was, it was almost certainly in that warehouse.
No items.
I'm not quite sure what no items means in this Samus, but sure. I guess we can't use torture devices anymore. Dang it. Unfortunately, the storehouse was a complete mess of everything from ancient torture devices, to piles of old documents, to mountains of trash I didn't even know how to use. The only place with any semblance of cleanliness was the space around the vessel and the altar. And what is the old-fashioned way? With a hatchet and a baseball bat? But we have no items, so I guess I can't use those. Finding anything, especially an object as small as this crystal ball, will be no simple matter.
Rika! 早く食事を済ませて学校に行きなさい!
I heard my mother's voice from the kitchen. School in this world wasn't the one I went to. I had time to go somewhere I didn't belong, and I should be using it to search the storehouse. There was no proof my search would only take 1 or 2 days. I really hate to say it. Since I didn't even know what it looked like, maybe I needed to prepare myself for the search to take years. Oh no, what were you supposed to do? I didn't go to school. Chie, ever conscientious, would call the house to see if I was staying home that day. Ah, yes, the database tests. Don't worry, I was supposed to be productive one task that I was hoping to get done before noon today took like another 4 hours because it was such a pain. So yes, I get the feeling of not being productive. That is strange. Yeah, that shouldn't matter unless you're like, you have migration scripts or seed files or something like that. Well, for some reason it's caching it. That's also very likely. That happened, it would cause trouble for both the parents and my school. I couldn't imagine how much time the search would take. Parents were suspicious things would get harder. Lone City wins the race, I guess. It was frustrating for weekdays, it would be better to pretend I was going to school like normal. I let out a languid sigh, got up and decided to eat breakfast. During mealtime, my mother's ramblings about how I was never allowed to go into the ritual storehouse again sadly made the food taste worse. My mother was always insistent and long-winded. I hated this part of her. Yeah. The only other thing I can think of is make sure your tests aren't running in parallel. Maybe that's part of the issue. You're supposed to clean it up after each one. I've run into issues before where, like, tests run in parallel when I expected them to be sequential. Yeah, you can do that, and maybe instead of, like, deleting the database, you just, like, truncate all tables or something. Yeah, maybe. Or you make, like, a test schema or something on it to put dummy data. You assume that dummy data is always in the test schema. The elders in the village laughed and said she couldn't help it. She did it for her only beloved daughter. To me, she's just a nuisance. Tough love wasn't what I needed at the moment. The only thing I could be thankful for, maybe, was that I didn't have to make breakfast for myself. But I could do it on my own, so I almost would have rather she left it to me. I was done eating and started to get ready for school, and my mother continued to nag me about making it on time. How aggravating. Maybe going to school isn't so bad. I wouldn't have to see my mother's face for half a day. I thanked her for the food, cleaned up my plate and utensils in the sink, and left immediately for school. Everything was going to betray my expectations anyway, so I wish class would too. Even in this world, class went the exact same way as the world I knew. Thought I escaped that world, and now it was repeating. Thinking that way made me feel even more listless. Only I distracted myself by teasing Sadako, but her seat was far away from mine. Probably also so bored with class, she didn't know what to do with herself. Satoshi, earnestly studying the seat over, was constantly trying to get her to focus. Mion seemed to be butting into Reina's business too, but they weren't fooling around. It was a strange, though pleasant sight. They were helping one another learn. Actually, they weren't the only pleasant sight. Everyone in the classroom was like that. I felt like I was the only one left out. I didn't know whether my seat was in its own row because of the odd number of students, or I'd chosen the seat on purpose in this world. I felt like my seat was separated from the rest of the classroom. When lunchtime came, I felt even more alienated. Classmates formed groups with friends and took out their food. Some members that always eat with me weren't there. Sadako was part of a circle of several friends, including her brother. There was no place for me to wedge myself into. Mion and Reina were sitting face to face as they ate. No room for me there either. Nobody asked me if I wanted to eat with them. They had fun eating their own meals. This seemed natural, like it was something that happened every day. For a short while I waited, hoping for Sadako or Mion or Reina to invite me over. The clock's minute hand moved 5, and then 10 places. I realized I might be left behind in eating. I finally gave up and opened up my bento box. Inside were the leftovers of last night's burned Hamburg steak. Bright rice with nori seaweed that was kind of sticky. Been entrapped with gooey nori. The remains of kimpira with chopped burdock root also burned. Guess I'd forgotten about that. For some reason, my mother overcooked everything. Summer is dangerous if you don't let the heat in, was a favorite phrase of hers. Cook steaks until they were rock hard. When she made fish, she turned half the insides to ash. And Sadako was better than that. Did she know how hot to cook things? I learned how to cook from honey and started to make things better than my mother. She must not have been happy. Tasted terrible, too. No presentation either. With me undecided of a bento contest, not only of this, I'd end up in last place. There was no club in this world, so I didn't have to worry about that. Sadako's happy laughter not being directed at me made me feel sad. Suddenly our eyes met. Did my feelings get through? Sadako burst out of her seat and glared at me.
さっきからジロジロと何見てんのよ。何か文句あんなら直接言ったら？文句なんかないです。
やめなよ、さとこ。たまたま目が合っただけじゃないか。
たまたまじゃないもん。ずーっとジロジロ見てんの。気持ち悪いったらありゃしない。
Sadako and her friends began whispering amongst themselves while looking at me. I couldn't hear what they said, but I could easily imagine them enjoying themselves.
ジロジロ見ないです。そうしてよね。せっかくのクリームコロッケの味が落ちちゃうもん。
I angled my desk a little so I couldn't see Sadako and the others. At first I'd called this world Sadako's cold. It seems like I was mistaken. This world Sadako either didn't like me or outright hated me. The other kids close to my age seemed to have formed a community around her. No place for me in it, so they all hated me too. The hardened ash-like steak tasted of salt. What did I have to feel this sad and lonely when I ate? In all of the other worlds, all of the club members would be enjoying lunch together. Sadako would be there, and Rena, and Mian, and Keiichi. Everyone would be having fun, spinning their breaks cheerfully and noisily. That was when Reina came over and peered into my bento box.
Rika ちゃんのお弁当はハンバーグとほうれん草なんだね。おいしそう。
Clear that Ren had come over to try and comfort my distress. For some reason I was frustrating, so I didn't want to answer her. I stayed silent. She held out an octopus-shaped sausage in front of me.
そのほうれん草の海苔巻きとタコさん交換しよう。ね。
Reina trying to be nice as I ate lunch alone, hated by my classmates. I just couldn't. I suddenly said I was going to wash my hands and left. Basher, in a bathroom stall, I cowered in my face with toilet paper and cried. The tears soaked through the paper and crinkled up. I didn't care. This was fine. It's better if I didn't have friends in this world. I had plenty of friends and the one I needed to return to. There, even Sadako was my irreplaceable best friend. All the club members who would never leave me alone during lunch hour were waiting for me. Why would I be sad that some Sadako I didn't know was being mean to me in a world I didn't care about? Why would I be? But despite the lies I told myself, I couldn't stop crying for a while. I decided to steal my resolve and wait for school to end. I would run back home saying I was going out to play and sneak into the ritual implement storehouse again. It's the only way I could get back to my original world. I had to try and do my best for that purpose alone. Okay. Looked in the mirror in the bathroom to see, face red from crying. If Chie saw me like this, things would probably get even more complicated. I washed my face and spent the rest of lunch break quietly in the corner of the classroom. After school, I literally dashed out of the building. It'd be a huge pain if I ended up caught up in the rush of other classmates as they headed out to go play. I think Satoshi called after me, but I ignored him, while he was trying to apologize for his sister about what happened during lunch. Care about that. I didn't want to stay in this horrible world a second more than I needed to. I ran full speed back to the house, ignored my mother when she asked as usual if I had any homework in search for a lantern. When I told her I was going out to play, and without waiting for a response, burst out of the house. I went around the shrine and looked for my father. I saw a note hanging in the assembly hall that said there was a shrine association meeting. I could hear my father's voice amidst the light-hearted chatter. It was the same opportunity I had yesterday. I'd have to be careful not to let it on that I was inside. Making sure nobody was looking, I climbed up the tree I'd gotten the hang of yesterday. I'd been scared of the heights before, but I wasn't afraid any longer, probably because I'd cried my eyes out and resolved myself during lunch. What I really had to be afraid of wasn't heights or my parents or the cold hard Sadako, of not being able to return to my original world. The next scariest thing would be losing contact with Hanyu, I think. Darkness of the storehouse, I took the crystal ball out of my pocket. Its weak glow seemed a little more energetic than yesterday. Maybe if she rested, a little of her power would come back. Nevertheless, it was still weak. I wasted on fruitless conversation, the light might go entirely. I firmly squashed down the desire to check and make sure I could still follow her and turned on the lantern. It's time to go treasure hunting. Is there anything around, anything only I could feel, something that felt the same as this crystal ball, somewhere? I closed my eyes, honing my senses, and hoped. But all I heard were the cries of the cicadas. I hadn't expected anything else. It looked like this would be tough enough to crack.
甘いか。
Searching the entire storehouse. How much time would that take? I didn't want to imagine it. But I had to do it or I couldn't go home. I'd do it systematically. Start in the corner, go in order. Without knowing what it looked like, I'd start in the corner and go from there, not even letting water past. Despite all that, I had no proof it was even in here. Like it would just be easier to fight Takano and the mountain dogs again.
弱々しくなっているということはないと思いますです。前と同じくらいの大きさの声に聞こえますのです。
つまり相変わらず弱々しくしか届かないということね。こんな無駄話は不要ね。
いいえ、今の理科には無駄話も必要と思いますです。
かもね。ありがとう。こちらから話すわね。細工伝を自分なりに散々漁ったつもり。でもさっぱりだわ。1週間くらいは探してみたつもりだけど、何し仮に見つけていたとしても私は気づかずに。正直辛いわ。せめて形だけでも分かれば、あるいは細工伝の中にあるという保証でもあれば、ずっとここに閉じこもっていると頭がどうにかなってしまいそうよ。
わかります。とても辛い探し物だと思います。僕もせめてかけらの姿がわからないか。
それで何かわかった？
かけらは理科の世界では思いと解釈されていますのです。その思いが何かに宿る形でかけらとなっているのです。
理屈はわかるけど、だからって何のヒントにもならないわ。
それからそのかけらをこちらの世界に戻す方法なのですが、
形を壊せってこと？
それも完全な形でなのです。人の世からなくなることで神の世に送ることができるのです。
質量保存の法則って知ってる？完全に物を消すなんて不可能よ。
いえ、ですから形を壊せばいいのです。わかりますか、リカ？古来から人が神に物を送る方法の中でそれを満たす方法がありますのですよ。
そうか、わかったわ。
Wait, ancient sent tribute to the gods, but to get rid of something in
焼け
the
って
world.
ことね。焼いて灰にして。
そうです。焼いて灰にすることで 形は失われて意味を失い、
なるほど、かけらが宿る何かを焼いて灰にしろってのね。その何かが簡単に燃やせるものであることを祈るわ。岩だった日には溶鉱炉にでも放り込まなきゃならなくなる。
実はリカ、そのかけらが宿るのが物ではなく人である可能性もありますのです。
なるほど、かけらは思いなんだもんね。物に宿るばかりってわけじゃないかもね。でも羽生、仮に人だったらどうするの？まさか焼いて灰にしろって言うんじゃないでしょうね。
人の意味は命の形が失われた時点で失われます。
そりゃそうよね。死体はもはや人じゃないわ。ってことは
I believe until now I've been searching for an object. Maybe it doesn't even have to be that. I'd have no problem burning an object, but if it wasn't an object but a person.
嫌な話ね。この世界どういうわけか嫌な想像に限って当たるのよ。
僕もそうでないことを祈るしかないです。
嫌な想像は大抵当たる。お逆手にとって先にそれを探るのも手ね。仮に人だったらやっぱりお社様に縁の近い人。
はい、おそらくは。
それが私自身。
いえ、リカ自身が僕を拒むかけらだったなら
となれば次はもしそうだったら
My human morality refused the idea of killing my parents. That was nothing a world-crossing witch needed to think about. Someone with a true world somewhere else, this was a false world, meaning it was the same as a dream. Murdering someone in a dream is no different from doing it in a delusion or daydream. There's nothing to consider about committing that sin in this world. Anya was making sad ow-ow noises, so I told her how I felt.
偽善しゃぶるのはやめて。ならあんたは元の世界へ帰るのは諦めてもいいって言うのね。あんたは卑怯よ。手を汚す決断を私にだけさせて罪を誰か一人にかぶせれば他はみんな罪にまみれずに済んで好都合。私はちょうどいい人柱ってわけね。
I felt those words were a little harsh on Hanya. A short while she remained silent, not saying anything. Her breathing made it sound like she wanted to say something, but was hesitating.
元の世界に帰りたい。レナがどこかの世界で言ったわ。幸せになるにはどこまでの努力が許されるんだろうってね。私はその努力に限界なんてないって思った。
Keiichi changed that. There's no limit to effort, but you have to talk to a lot of people and get their advice on whether your efforts are misplaced or not. That's why I was talking about it with Hanyu, when you shared my current situation. Hanyu said if the object possessing the fragment was a person, I had to kill them. I'd want to avoid that, of course, if there were any other way. But she said that was the only way, and I wouldn't hesitate. That was all.
僕も元の世界に帰りたいのです。
そうね、私もよ。
かけらが宿っているのが人でないことを祈ってます。
祈ってて、私も祈って。あときついことを言い過ぎ。あんたにできることはヒント探しと私が挫折しないよう自らの手で鍵を探せないもどかしさを理解してなかったの。
リカよりは辛くありませんのです。せめてリカの心が疲れてしまわないよう僕にはこうしてお話をしていたわってあげることし。
ありがとう。あんたとするヨタ話がこの世界では一番楽しいわ。悪夢がその間だけ冷めるような感じ。
I see. I sort of understand why she said chatting could be important. Hanyu was the only one I could talk to from my original world. If I lose contact with Hanyu, maybe my very connection to that world would weaken and my memories would blur. I would simply give birth to a miserable, broken-hearted girl, living in the delusion that this world wasn't the one she
私に
belonged in.
任せなさい。必ず。だからあんたも引き続き何かヒントを集めて。私も何か進展があったらまたあんたに連絡するわ。
わかりましたです。リカ、しっかりファイトオーなのですよ。
Couldn't hear Hanyu anymore. The crystal ball's light had grown weaker than ever. As long as it had its otherworldly glow, and I could keep believing this wasn't the world I was supposed to live in. Before, I might have shed a tear or two by now. But all the tears I could have cried had dried up. I gripped the crystal ball tightly, savoring the cheer Hanyu had given me. Do your best. Go for it. Yay. I moved over to a spot with a pile of old documents. If it could interview with Hanyu, it had to be related to the old legends of Oeshirosama. So maybe I thought, a clue would be written in one of the documents in that pile. Maybe even if the thing I searched for wasn't in here, I would find a clue to it instead. I took a few documents from the pile and packed them into the knapsack I brought with me. I could read some, but couldn't understand any of the others. Something important was in one of the indecipherable ones I'd have no way of knowing, but I shouldn't think about that right now. I pulled out a few of the documents I could read and decided to read them in secret at school and in bed. As I went in and out of the storehouse, the chances of my parents finding out increased. In that sense, this would lower the risk, which made it a little easier for me. Even my parents did understand their children best and be the first ones to help them. That was when they were normal, and not a witch like me. If my daughter started babbling about not being from this world, they would probably tie her down and summon a noisy ambulance. If I were a little more cunning, I could flatter my parents and put the work in to make this world a little more bearable. The more I thought about this world, not being the one I lived in, the more apathetic I felt towards interacting with those who were here. It was probably why it seemed like I was being more and more isolated in class. Of course, maybe you could say that was my own fault. It's the kind of world this was at the moment. I arrived. I wouldn't dare let anyone say this is my fault. Of course, not a single person could tell the difference between Rika Furude and me anyways. Who is me? Me that isn't Rika Furude. Who is she? Came around to a quiet electronic beat. Looked at my watch and noticed it was already evening. Being in here made me lose track of time. The other day I was out way past curfew and scolded for a long time. The alarm on my watch was to prevent that. Letting my relationship with my parents grow any worse would make everything else more troublesome. I should call it quits for today. Practice motions, I climbed the bundle of chains and headed through the exit in the roof. I returned to the main house, surrounded by the cries of the Higurashi that I'd grown completely tired of. There was a tightly packed case of beer near the front door and 3 bottles of wine. The beer case was probably for a drinking party at the Shrine's assembly hall or something. My father didn't drink beer because he liked it, but knew it had to be for the assembly hall. They delivered it here before the party so he could chill it beforehand in the assembly hall refrigerator. The wine probably belonged to my father. Father enjoys Western spirits, and wine most of all. Wine at the same time was something I enjoyed as well. Or, after my parents had died in 1981, I'd gotten wine by bringing it from the main house, but my parents were alive in this world, so I couldn't do that. I stared at the bottles longingly as I tried to open the door, receiving the clack of its lock in response. I took a key from my pocket, unlocked the door, went in. A note addressed to me upon entering. It was from my mother. The note said an accident had suddenly occurred at the Kinyoshi house and had gone to help with the memorial service. They'd be coming back, late, so on and so forth. Written as a postscript was a notice that the brewer would bring alcohol to take it inside the front door once I got back for them. I see, that must have been referring to all of this. The person had come while I was here. I could have told them to put it inside. I couldn't bear to see them outside like this. Put here before I got back. The pain of my mother started rambling about me being inconsiderate later. I made a sour face not caring, you saw, and pulled the case of beer through the front door. Next I stood before the wine bottles and solidified my thoughts. Had there been a slip-up with the order? The brewery in a small village, my father felt to say he'd order one more bottle. Probably bring over another one without a second thought. What would it matter if one of these disappeared? I always dilute it before drinking, so I'd be able to enjoy one bottle of wine for a pretty long time. Despite being in the entrance, I belatedly looked around, grabbed a bottle, and ran into my room. Pushed it into my winter futon in my closet that I wouldn't use for a while. Actually, my parents live here too, so I won't have many chances to drink. I ran into the kitchen, grabbed a glass, ice, corkscrew, and a carton of orange juice, and ran back to my room. With the corkscrew and the wine bottle, I was overwhelmed by the urge to wet my tongue with the nostalgic flavor as soon as I could. How was I supposed to survive in this world without enjoying a good wine? I poured some into the glass and listened to the orange juice splashing in to fill it up, with my mouth water like a dog. Diluted this much, it looked like orange juice from the outside. But it was the nostalgic flavor that belonged to my world. One time this had been the flavor of my tears of defeat shed for an unbreakable June of 1983. Now even those tears of defeat felt sweeter and tender. Those dead-end worlds were very painful. I was still surrounded by my kind friends. With the leeway to choose to surrender to Kano and continue lazily living in that infinite loop. Even that warmth was absent in this world. It's made a week now since I came here. No prospects of returning to my previous world. I resolved myself staying here for a long time. The weekend had already driven me to drink. It'll be fine. Those worlds had driven me to the same state, and I still managed lazily doing my best as I soaked in wine, right? I need to be released from this Rika Frude quickly. Nobody in this world would understand that even if I explained it. I mean, I had no allies here. If I told someone, they'd think I'd gone crazy. Considering this world's Rika Frude, that was only natural. This world's Rika Frude was a dour girl without a single friend. One day she'd been hit with a ball in the schoolyard, started saying she doesn't belong in this world. The big Dr. Yamamoto heard about this. He'd probably make a huge fuss about the impact having caused brain damage. That would make the most sense to the people who lived here. At the very least, until I arrived, Rika Frude was Rika Frude, the correct being for this world. Maybe it was more appropriate to say that one day I, someone different from this world's Rika, appeared, then took over Rika's body. Right. Am I not Rika Frude? Well, no, this world's Rika Frude was this world's Rika Frude, a different being than me. I'd simply be interpreting her as this being the same as me even when I was in different worlds until now. When I thought about that, leaving aside whether I'd been living happily, I felt like I'd done something bad to this world's Rika Frude. Of course, it was too late to apologize now, and I couldn't give this body back to her anymore. If there's a way to apologize, it would be to acknowledge this world's Rika Frude as a being of her own. So I called myself Rika Frude, the girl who already existed would vanish from this life. And the only way to apologize was to not call myself Rika Frude. All that had been bothering me for a long time. I've long felt that my younger self, pampered as the reincarnation of Oishirasama and my old self, who had awakened and traveled countless worlds of different personalities. If I thought of them not as personalities, but as different beings entirely, right now it was no longer Rika Frude. Who am I? I stared vacantly at the wine bottle. Did I like this brand? My father always loved to drink this wine. As a result, I borrowed it in countless worlds. I love to drink it even now. Right now, I couldn't even be lazy without borrowing the power of alcohol. This wine comforted me just a little. At this point, I couldn't go on living without this wine. So in other words, I wasn't alive, the wine was. Which meant I wasn't Rika Frude, but I was the wine. I stared at the western letters of the brand name written on the wine label, which I didn't know how to pronounce. I thought to myself that it was the name of me. My name is Rika Frude. Not that, but this, Baron Castell. I don't know what that means. Maybe I'll ask my father. Frederica Baron Castell. Whatever. What a silly name that is. That won't be a silly name when we play another game later. For that. My thoughts began to slur and muddle. Cheers to this shithole of a world.
Nipa! どうしたの急に。母の日はとっくに過ぎてるわよ。
Thanked my mom and patted her shoulder as I brushed her head. It's all a show, of course. If she had the same power inside her as Hanyi, then touching her like this, I'd be able to sense it, even if it was feeble. If I did feel that power from my mother, could I kill her on the spot? I wouldn't hesitate to kill, but I couldn't say I would hesitate right here and now. I'd rather she not have that power inside her. At the same time, I was uneasy about what to do next if she didn't. My mother laughed like a tickle, but contrary to what she thought, I was carefully checking if I needed to kill her.
ありがとう。気持ちは十分伝わったから、もう許して。くすぐったくて辛いわ。
My mother told me that was enough, smiling in a way that was not as dissatisfied as her words implied. Even after being so scrupulous about touching her, I couldn't feel any trace of the power. My mother wasn't the one who held the fragment. I'd already felt my father's head. It wasn't him either. It was neither of the two people closest to the legend of Oyashiro-sama. It was improbable that the fragment wasn't a person. It was a happy thing, not having to kill anyone. It also meant one of the clues was now meaningless. It said, even though the possibility was unlikely, itself to touch the heads of other people in the village every chance I got just to make sure. At the same time, I had to continue my deciphering of the pile of documents in the ritual-influenced storehouse. Whichever I was supposed to choose, the labor of breathing through that entire mountain or the sin of killing someone, I was going to need much more than a little time. I had lost track of how many mornings it had been since I drifted to this world. This morning was frustratingly the same as the last world, the one I knew. They said next Sunday was the Watnagashi festival. This was the first time I didn't care whatsoever about it. For Hinamizawa, facing total eviction by next year, this would be their very last festival. They were apparently planning to put on a magnificent show to end things with. The normal world responsibility of performing the dedication dance as the last survivor of the Fude family didn't exist in this world either. Still, I wasn't simply expected to go off and have fun. They had me help with things that kids could help with, like giving out boiled rice and answering the phone. Gotten used to going to school alone, too. I went to school at Sadako. It was always a lively morning, thus running and falling everywhere. That too was beginning to feel like a memory of the distant past. Several days already behind me and my mind settled, but stopped crying about small memories like that. Everything I did was for the sake of returning to my original world. I might curse the trouble it was taking, but I would never cry again. So even when I met Sadako at the school gate and said good morning, only to be bluntly ignored like always, did make me sad. The real Sadako was an incomparable friend of mine. Even fake Sadako ignored me, it wouldn't hurt me inside anymore. Mion wasn't outright cold like Sadako, but she didn't seem to think of me as any more than one of her many classmates. Many here being like 10. Raina seemed like she was actually trying to talk to me. That was because I was isolated. She was acting with a kind of pity, and it seemed sadder to accept that. It started reacting nastily to Raina's unwanted attention. After just a few exchanges like that, she realized I didn't want her doing this and stopped bothering me. Being all alone wasn't sad anymore. It was only natural I'd be alone as an outsider to this false world. I had less annoying acquaintances I needed, the easier it was for me. That's right. Easier. And I started feeling that way. And even if nobody talked to me during lunch, nobody invited me to eat with them, nobody asked me to play after school, I was totally okay with it. So few students in the classroom, if I took out a book not related to class, she would confiscate it right away. I probably wouldn't be able to read the old documents that she was teaching. So all I could do was wrap them in covers I made from flipping over leaflets and folding them, spending my free time at school pretending I was reading a regular book. We weren't allowed to bring comics to school, and unspoken agreement was you could read novels as long as you didn't do it during class. I just ignore the hustle and bustle of the lunch break was the time I could focus the most. She also wasn't there during lunch break if I remember correctly. She just leaves and goes to the staff room to eat. Somewhere in those countless worlds, there was a time when I got bored with my daily life and read a lot of old documents. Thanks to that, I knew the gist of their context. I just hoped there was a clue somewhere in them, the fragment rejecting honey from this world. It's been raining since midday. All my classmates had stayed in the class or break, venting their pent-up energy indoors. Thanks to that, it was a bothersome, loud, and comfortable day for me.
なにネクラな顔して読んでんの？
Same time as those words, my old document was taken from me. There was Sadako's face, smiling evilly.
なにこれ？わけわかんない。
Sadako looked at the old document she'd stolen from me with disgust. Someone as ignorant as Sadako had no way to understand it. I'd learned how to read classical Japanese from my father, and even I had to go over each line several times to figure it out. Of course, for Sadako, it wasn't about what it said. She seemed more amused at how unsanitary it looked, with dirty letters written on the dirty paper. Even if it was nothing more than a flimsy book to her, it was something that could hold a clue. I tried to snatch it back. She threw it to another friend as though she'd seen my attempt coming miles away.
なにこれ？うわ、汚い。
Girl who caught it threw it to another kid. That kid, after his face scrunched up with the filth being given to him, grinned like an idiot and threw it away to someone else.
はいよ、パスパス。お兄さん、ミュウさん、パスパス。
Several of my classmates threw it amongst themselves whenever I chased after it, teasing me. At some point, Mia joined their circle and turned to a class-wide bullying. Today wasn't the first time this had happened. Actually, maybe before I came, it was always like this. Even in a classroom with just 10 people, an order existed, and so did cliques. Belonging to none, and not wanting to, I was the weakling in the room, thus clearly the one it was okay to torment. Reina was the only one who said they should stop, but nobody listened to her. The classmates wanted to fool around. They probably wanted to tell her I was the only toy in the room, so why shouldn't they play with her during lunch break? In the last few days, it had left heartwarming territory and moved to aggravating territory. This Sadako clearly treated me with spite. Thought about it now, the accident with the ball in the schoolyard that brought me to this world. She'd obviously been aiming for Rika, who'd just been standing there in the yard. Sadako, always this oblivious to the pain of others, understood people's pain best. She'd been... because even though she said mean things, she'd been through the worst of anyone. See, this world, Sadako's parents were alive, and the villagers didn't torment her. In other words, she hasn't been through the worst of anyone. Personality isn't wholly determined from birth. It's also something cultivated over many events and experiences. Following her lucky day strolls, this is how Sadako's personality had turned out in this world. In other words, the Sadako was only the same on the outside, but a completely different person from the best friend on the inside. Once I understood that, the sadness of Sadako tormenting me disappeared. In its place, she ended up like a horrible brat just getting in the way of my haste to return to my original world. Don't bother me. I don't care what any of you do in this lunatic world. I'm desperately working to return to my original one, so stay out of my way.
ほらほら、フルデさん。こっちよ、こっち。
The old document made its way back to Sadako again. This time Sadako started teasing me, waving it around and saying, "Come get it." She held her nose and made a sour face like she was holding up something filthy, earning laughs and jeers from the rest of the class. I went straight for Sadako, and of course she threw it to the next one in line. I must have thought this would make me go over there next, but I didn't care about where the document was. Instead, I charged straight at Sadako. I tucked my nails into the base of my fingers and clenched my fist. I decided this was the fastest method to explain how important this was, make her understand, earn any reprisals, all in a very short period of time. I swung my right fist at Sadako's face. The tip of my fist plowed into her face below the left eye, leaving an imprint that wouldn't soon disappear. I promptly grabbed a clump of her hair and pushed her to the floor, then took a nearby chair and raised it over my head before smashing it into her a few times. Sadako didn't know what had just happened. Confused by the sudden violence, she just curled up like a turtle. It looked a little crazy hitting her with a chair like this, but it wouldn't hurt her very badly. I raised the chair and slammed it down over the top of Sadako's upper body, exactly as if to hold her to the ground. I lifted my foot above the chair and stomped on it like I was hammering in a nail.
サトコ、あんた少しうるさい。私の親友と同じ顔してるから。いい加減。あんたのその甲高い声にもイラついてきたわ。以後、 私の半径1メートル以内に入ったら言い訳なしで即ぶん殴るから聞いてる？
I stomped on the chair again and finally saw an expression of fear arrive on Sadako's face. I knew this was the best answer. Given the chance, I had to give it to her straight. But it made me mad. I was the last one in the world who wanted to see Sadako looking like that. I was the one who was forcing her to make that expression. It made me sick. It was fine in the end. Sadako wasn't the one I knew after all. One day I'd leave this world for sure. Even if I killed her on the spot, it didn't have anything to do with the Sadako of my world. That's why it didn't hurt inside, all seeing her look at me so terrified.
ほら、リカちゃんの本を返してあげて。はい、リカちゃん。
Rika plucked the document from a bewildered classmate and returned it to me.
だからもう、さとこちゃんを許してあげて。少しやりすぎだよ。
ふーん、なら私の大切な本を奪って貴重な読書の
そういう意味じゃなくて、
当事者じゃないなら引っ込んでて。私はこれを取り戻せて満足よ。
Kicked the chair over, indicating to Sadako she'd been released. Even that action made her so scared that she was frozen in place. I didn't waste time going back to my own seat. And Sadako began to bawl shamelessly, said she ran over, making a big, overprotective fuss about the nurse's office and whatnot. The noise quickly reached the faculty room, and she and the principal soon burst in.
大丈夫ですか、さとこさん。これはあざになるかもしれません。さとしくん、保健室へ連れて行って休ませてください。私は山本先生を呼んできます。
While Chia was talking, the principal must have asked me what had happened in the classroom. And spoke to him in hushed tones, glancing my way. She was probably saying she had no part in this, and asking me on might say that. She didn't betray my expectations. The principal came over and told me to come with him to the principal's office. This usually happens when the bullied child happens to bully back. A side effect of the bullying, perhaps. I was seriously fed up with everything, but my goal only been to scare Sadako off from bothering me ever again. Now that I'd done that, I decided I needed to calm the situation down. After being brought to the principal's office, he kept asking me why I punched Sadako and lectured me that violence was never the answer. But regarding her taking the book and tormenting me, he admitted she was at fault, and I felt a little relieved.
これはなかなか難しい本であるな。フルデ君の家の書物かね。
まあ、そんなところなのです。
わしも古文は嫌いではないが、これはなかなかに難読だ。君には読めるのか。
読めなきゃ読みませんです。
いや、それは道理である。どういう内容のことが書いてあるのか、少し校長先生に教えて
His behavior
く
wasn't one out of
れ。
interest in the book, so much as an act dripping with pity, like he wanted to ease the mind of someone alienated and bullying class a little. Are we talking to MDS's cat? Accepting that would do nothing but further amplify my current
別に友
unhappiness.
達なんか欲しくないし、校長先生に友達になっても欲しくありません。
Ah, okay. Hi, Alyssa.
もういいのですか？私はその続きを一刻も早く読み進めたいのです。
フルデ君、読書もいいが、たまには友達に混じって遊ぶのもいいこととは思わんかね。
私の友達は別の遠い場所にいます。ここにはいないので興味ないです。
その手痛まないかね。
え？ああ。
I didn't realize until the principal pointed it out and was scraped skin off my hand when I punched Sadako as hard as I could. A little bit of blood was seeping from my
保
right
健室
fist.
に山本先生が来てるから。
そうします。
フルデ君、学校は勉強をするだけのところじゃない。友達を作るところでも少しそこを肝に。
失礼しますです、ペコリ。
This world's principal wasn't the principal who was allowed to lecture me, so I didn't have any desire to listen. On the way to the nurse's office, I passed the classroom and met eyes with several students inside, but they immediately looked away. Maybe this'll work out. I'm more comfortable with them being scared than teasing me. I went to the nurse's office. The doctor was just putting a big piece of absorbent cotton under Sadako's eye. She who was with her looked at me and walked over with a scary look on her
二人
face.
ともさとこさんはご本を取ってごめんなさいと、フルデさんは殴ってごめんなさいと、互いに謝りなさい。
Sadako had been scared and weak, and the face of the sudden violence earlier must have calmed down, since she now looked dejected. It looked like it didn't make sense to her, but she was only teasing me a little, and then suddenly I went crazy for no reason and hit her. If she was like that, then there was no way she would apologize first. Of course, I had no duty to apologize either, so I wouldn't apologize
二
first.
人ともお互い謝らないならいつまでもこのままですよ。
She yelled at us. Clearly making a sour face, I held my bleeding fist out to Yamamoto.
出血してるじゃないかね。座りなさい。消毒しよう。
二人とも先生の言うことが聞けませんか？謝りなさい。
I sensed that if we keep making Shane mad, she might tell us to stay after school. What did she think this was? Like hell, I'd let some school I don't care about do their lecturing nonsense at me. Every second of every minute is precious. I can't waste a single one. Once I understood that, I was the first to act. As Yamamoto disinfected the wound, I smoothly gave her my apology.
殴ったりしてごめんなさい。
Smoothly. Even I was appalled at how insincere my apology was. She had probably felt the same way, but she at least appreciated the words.
フルデさんは謝りましたよ。さとこさんも謝りなさい。
Yeah, and stuff, exactly.
ご本を取っていたずらしてすみませんでした。
Sadako's own apology was no less disingenuous than mine. I glared straight into Sadako's eyes, warning her to never bother me again. But Sadako was in a rebellious phase, so it would take a lot more than that to make her wince. She returned my glare in kind as if to say she'd get me back next time. Chie sighed, unable to do much about her insincere apologies. And then the bell rang, signaling the end of lunch break.
ではさとこさん、教室に戻りましょう。フルデさんも手当てが終わったらすぐに戻ってくるように。
Chie followed Sadako and left the nurse's office. I didn't give them so much as a glance and just held my right hand out to Yamamoto. The stinging pain of the disinfectant was somehow weak. The hand receiving treatment didn't even feel like my hand. I suppose it wouldn't. It's Rika Furude's hand, not mine.
みんな今年で学校がおしまいになってしまうのが寂しいんだな。君もだろう？
別にそういうわけじゃない。
住み慣れた故郷が湖底に沈むんだ。悲しくないわけがないよ。君たちの気持ちもよくわかるさ。
Must have been Yamamoto's interpretation of the strained atmosphere in the classroom. I was convinced of that, then maybe it was fine. It didn't matter
君だ
to
っ
me.
てちょっと前までは友達がいっぱいいた。でもたまたま君と特に仲がいい友達がみんな、君が突然一人ぼっちになってしまった寂しい気持ちはわしもよくわかる。
仲の良かった友。
ほら富田君や岡村君たちさ、いっつも仲良しの男子たちと一緒にいたじゃないか。君はこう一点で随分可愛がられていたと思うけど。
I see. Rika Furude had friends for a while in this world. It's a stroke of bad luck. They all transferred out together and left her behind.
友達は彼らだけじゃないんじゃないかね。寂しい気持ちもわかるし、来年までの仲かもしれないけど、クラスの他の子とも友達になって楽しくやっていった方が君にとってもいいんじゃないかい？
別に親しくなりたくなんかないし、私の本当の友達はあなたの言う通り、とてもとても遠くへね。私はそこへ帰りたいだけ。
リカちゃんはいつからそんな大人びた話し方をするようになったのかね？
うん、まあ気分です。
先日君がボールを頭にぶつけて気絶した一件以来、君がこれまで見せなかった暗い表情を見せているような気、心配してるんだよ。
I didn't know how close the Yamamoto man was to Rika Furude, or how much of her he knew. Judging from his words, he seemed to be the kind of adult who understood children's feelings. It's like Irie in the
あ
previous
のボール
world.
が当たった時、多分フルでリカは死んだと思うんです。
あれくらいで死んでたらドッジボールもできないよ。じゃああれで死んでたんなら 君は亡者ということなのかね。
Yamamoto laughed a little, but not completely to tease me, just to urge me further along. So Yamamoto wasn't just the doctor at the nurse's office, but a mental counselor for students at a susceptible age. Looked like he wasn't Erie's replacement for nothing. For some reason, I felt like opening up a little to him. Maybe it was because he didn't exist in the world I knew. Right now, everyone who was in the world I knew, no matter who it was, made me uncomfortable. That was why I felt like opening up specifically to someone who wasn't in that world. After all, Yamamoto probably thought I was just a girl hitting puberty. Whatever nonsense I spouted, he would just nod and agree.
山本たちの知ってるフルでリカじゃな。
それはどういうことだね。じゃあ
とりあえずベルンカステルって名乗るフルでリカって名乗ったら、この体の本来の持ち主に悪いので。
ベルン横文字かい。まるで宇宙人みたいだね。君はどこか
You
ら
heard
来
it
たん
here
だい？
first. Germans are like space aliens.
別の世界からです。例えるならイフの世界、同じひなみ沢だけど歴史や成り立ちが全く違う世界。この世界ではダム計画が決定して村人の立ち退きが決まっているけれど、ダム計画に村人が結束して立ち上がり、そしてダム計画は無期限に凍結された。そういう世界から来ました。
では君の来たひなみ沢はダム湖には沈まないわけか。
そうです。昭和58年の後もずっとのどかな生活が続いていきます。
いいひなみ沢だね。わしもこの土地をとても気に入っているから、立ち退きは本当は心苦しい。だから君の来たという世界のひなみ沢に憧れるよ。その世界のひなみ沢をもう少しわしに教えてくれんかね。
First step in the counseling was to read whatever absurd story the patient came out with. You know, that piece of trivia might have teared up at Yamamoto telling me to continue. I couldn't resist the temptation to keep going. He encouraged me, and I kept talking. In that world, there was a big protest movement we called the Dam Conflict. It took years for them to withdraw the proposal. Through the conflict, the villagers came together. Everyone got along. All the students were friends. We even had transfer students coming from outside of the village. The club where we would play games with Mion as president. Sadako was very unfortunate. She was good friends with me. And then...
さとこちゃんがかわいそうだな。なんでさとこちゃんが村中からいじめられなくちゃいけない。みんな幸せな世界なんだから。さとこちゃんにも意地悪しないで幸せの輪に入れてあげなよ。
別に意地悪で言ってるわけじゃないわ。私の世界では。それにこの世界のさとこよりは辛い運命をたどるかもしれないけど、そのさとこは私の一番の友達で、だからこの世界のさとこの顔が余計に腹が立つの。
その君の本当の親友と同じ顔で君に意地悪をするのが許せない？
そう。
Yamamoto heaved a heavy sigh and stared out the window with his arms folded. It looked the rain outside had let up somewhat, but it was still drizzling. Keeping silence for a few moments, Yamamoto spoke up.
つまりここは君の世界じゃないということ？
そうです。私は元の世界に帰らなければならない。ここは私の世界じゃないんです。
確かにそんな楽しいひなみ沢なら一刻も早く元の世界に帰りたいよな。でも帰る方法はあるのかね？
あります。でも探すのはとても大変です。
ほう、そりゃどんな方法だい？
多分このひなみ沢のどこかにかけらが落ちています。そのかけらのせいで私を元の世界に戻す力を持ったいえ、お社様がこの世界へ来られないのです。
お社様ってフルデ神社に祀られてるあの神様のお社様？
説明すると長いですが、そんなところです。私は彼女と一緒にあまたの世界を巡ってきました。この世界は その結果に漂着した世界の一つでしかありません。だから彼女が来てくれればすぐにでも出ていくつもり。
急に話が大きくな。つまり君はお社様と一緒にこの世界へ来たわけだ。ところが君をこの世界から連れ出せるお社様がどういうわけかこの世界に入れない。つまり君は船が漂流してしまって取り残されたようなものと。
平たく言うとそういうことです。彼女をこちらに呼びたくてもそれを見つけ出して焼いてしまわないと私は元の世界へ帰れない。
そのかけらというのはどこに。
どこかにあるかけらは、だからそれが宿る何か、どんな形をしているものに宿っているのかわからないし、人間に宿っているのかもしれん。何もわからないんで。
君は物だったら焼くと言ったね。人だったらどうするんだい。
羽生は人の場合なら殺すことで同じ意味を持つと言ってる。かけらを宿すのが人間でないことを祈ってるわ。
その羽生と新しいと。
ああ、お社様の別名よ。むしろ羽生が本名。お社様なんて名前は後世の村人の誰かがつけた。
なるほど。それが君の読んでいた本に書いてあったのかな。
別にそういうわけじゃないわ。
Yamamoto's arms remained folded. He groaned in thought. Another silence settled, with braying being the only audible sound. Maybe I'd gotten nervous. It wouldn't solve anything to talk about it, but I did anyways. Yamamoto was probably wondering if something was wrong with my brain. I guessed that level from his complicated
そのかけ
expression.
らは見つかりそうかい。
わからないわ。羽生に干渉する力なのだから、お社様にゆかりのある何かにヒントがあるんじゃないかと思って探し物のヒントを探してる。
そうか、見つかるといいね。でもそれが人だったら君はどうするんだい。まさか本当に殺しちゃう気なのかね。
そういう風に聞かれると変。それしか元の世界に戻る方法が。どうせ私の世界から見ればこの世界は妄想や白チュームと同じ。誰が死んだって私の世界では生きてるし。
なるほどなるほど。でもちょっと待ちなさい。君にとってこの世界は夢の中なのかもしれないが、たとえ誰であっても殺されちゃ困る。
理屈は分かってるし、私も人殺しなんてせずに帰れるなら。
話題を戻そう。君に元の世界への帰り方を教えてくれるそのお告げみたいなものがある。それとも夢
そんな曖昧な会話ある水晶玉が。
わしもその羽生と話すことは
That'd
で
be
き
the
るか
fastest
ね。
way. Talk to Honey directly, that'd be enough to prove my nonsense true. But it felt uneasy. Even if I could talk to her, Yamamoto might not be able to. Those kinds of magic items come up pretty often in stories. Maybe it's worth a shot trying. I took the crystal ball out of my pocket.
そのビー玉が通信機かい。
やっぱりそう思うわよね。私もビー玉だと思ったわ。
Crystal ball's light was extremely weak. It got dimmer, also taking longer to restore lately. Talking to her several days ago, the light weakened again, and I was having a hard time recovering. So much light wasn't quite enough. It's like it needed a bit more time to
このビ
recover.
ー玉に
光の反射じゃないかい。でも綺麗なビー玉だね。ラムネ瓶の玉かい。
とんでもない。フルデ神社の至宝カムのなんたらとかいう
Although
あ
she
りがた
doesn't
い
know
宝
what
だ
it's
そう
called.
ラムネ瓶の玉に見えるって点では悪いけど、
フルデジン。
私はすると声が聞こえるの。
Yamamoto tried immediately, but his eyes noted a low groan. Probably wouldn't work. I couldn't tell if it was because it wasn't me or because the power was too weak.
君はどう。
羽生と話すには貸して。まだ回復しきっていない水晶玉では。
I pushed it tightly against my forehead, but all I felt was a cool sensation. I couldn't feel the power in it.
それは
日数を重ねると時間をもらえれば、その時。
そうじゃあもしか。
ええ、このままじゃただのその失礼な誤解を解か。
その水晶玉。
もう少しだと、もう一晩も待てば力が戻ったら
ありがとう。もし羽生と話をどうだね。
本当に
Simple word help made a deep impression on my mind. Someone other than Hanyu around to understand me would obviously be a reassurance. With two people, the time it would take to go through the piles of literature would be halved. I welcomed the help of a cat at this point, so I was really glad. On the other hand, I had to think about what Yamamoto felt. For Yamamoto right now, I was a dangerous person who said she might even commit murder over delusion. He was only speaking to me in such an understanding way, trying to keep communication going. It didn't mean he actually believed me. Hanyu and Yamamoto could talk. Clear all those fears away, and then he'd have to believe in the supernatural phenomenon of Hanyu and me. The real world didn't usually work out that well. After all, even if I made Hanyu talk to him in the end, it'd end in the way it always does, with Yamamoto not hearing anything. I could convey what she was saying, but he wouldn't believe it. That didn't mean I had the option of not trying. I wouldn't give up before it, and I'd try everything. Wasn't that the lesson I'd learned from this 100 years journey?
約束よ。ちゃんと羽生と話ができたら信じて。会う会うしか言わない。およそ神様っぽくないやつだけどね。
約束する。羽生と話をさせてくれたら君の話を信じよう。でももし羽生と話ができなかったらどうする？
I didn't actually think he'd reply like that. It
どう
confused
する
me.
って言われても。
君が勝ったら君の話を信じるや。じゃあわしが勝ったら君がわしの話を信じるという約束にどうだね？
山本の何の話を信じろと。
I imagined without having to ask. Well, told me to go to a large hospital and have my head given a proper look at. Of course, there's absolutely nothing wrong with my head, so it would come up with 0 results. When that happened, maybe they'd say I need to take care of my mind and give me psychotropic drugs or something. I heard this from Rena once before. It's a drug that makes you incredibly lethargic, unable to do or even think anything at all. Dangerous patients think terrible things, and sometimes actually do them. Drugs stop that from happening. If made me take that, it would be the same as killing me. It seemed like a fair condition, but it looked to me like the scales weren't in my favor to begin with. When I've told this stuff to a man I barely knew. For all that, I began to regret my decision. I'd fool him if I said it was all a joke. Did you believe me, Ipa? That was going to be my last resort. I'd use it if my attempt to have Yamamoto and Hanyu communicate fail. I couldn't abandon the possibility that Yamamoto would be my ally without trying first.
じゃあ明日はちゃんとリカちゃんのために予定を空けておこう。それでいいかい？
He made a suggestion, taking a notebook out of his coat and going over his other appointments. I nodded and said I agree.
Rika ちゃん。
I think there's where we'll stop for today.